There will be no real non-controlled currency in the world.
We're coming for you, banks.
Listening to different podcasts, like in a whole different reality, which they think completely different things about Bitcoin.
They have got my money in their banking system. I should be able to access it, right?
Our Player is live.
There's a good number of fucking, pretty smart Bcashers.
Hello and welcome back to the Bitcoin Cash podcast, following Bitcoin Cash on its rise to global reserve currency. This is episode number 168, ParityUSD and mFI, featuring Mathieu Geukens. Today is Saturday, the 13th of December, 2025. I'm your host, Jeremy. Jet is doing the producing. Glad to be back at it. It's been a couple of weeks, so I'm feeling fired up for this one. BCH is on the road to top 10. We're at rank number 11. BCH at USD $577.60, way up. One BTC sat buys only 156.6 BCH, and that's actually dropped back a bit. So we've been well below the 150 to 1 ratio. One ETH buys only 539 megasats, also way up on the ratio there. Selene, 30-day, 625 users. We did pump there as well too. That's certainly a noticeable increase. And as Callisti has informed me, the stat collector only notices people who've made a transaction and only the second time they come back to the wallet. So if you get someone to download it, you just show it to them, they don't come up on the stats. They only come up if they make a transaction and then they come back on a later day. So if the Selene stats is going up, that means like we're having a big flood of not just new users, but returning users as well too, which is just amazing to see. Tokenor TVL, 11,330 BCH. We got the road to top 10 graph here that I made as well too, of BCH over time. This, I don't think you can even get this stat anywhere. I had to literally make it myself, but I just went.
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah. So BCH is going along. In 2017, it starts at rank 4 and 3. It was bouncing around in there for quite a long time until 2020. Then there was a huge pumps in coronavirus. All the other coins were, Cardano, Solana, AVAX, whatever, were all pumping. BCH cratering all the way down to number 30 in mid 2023. CoinFlex disaster, etc. After that, Cash Tokens comes out, the comeback starts, and now BCH is back up to number 11. Mathieu, tell me, we were talking before the show a little bit. Rank 10, it's in sight. What do you think?
Yeah, I'm also feeling fired up. It's an underdog story, and this is the part of the arc that's the comeback. So I love to be here for it. And indeed, the coronavirus time was pretty tough for BCH and of course generally. But I'm feeling very positive about this steady comeback. And as you say, we're on the edge of being back in the top 10.
That's going to be huge. Like you were saying, the number 10 currently is Cardano. So we're at 11.5 billion and they're currently at 14.8 billion. So we do have a bit of work to do. It's not like, on the razor's edge just yet, but it's not out of the question, one or two good days from us and one or two bad days from Cardano, it would be either neck and neck or the flippening would be on. That is huge because BCH getting into the top 10, you just can't ignore that. We'll wait and see what happens when it does happen, but I feel like there's got to be at least a few articles coming out. BCH re-enters the top 10, CoinDesk, Cointelegraph. We've already seen they put out Cointelegraph, that article. BCH is the best performing coin of 2025.
We are.
So people notice, it's like we've said on the show for a very long time, like price is actually what it takes for people to notice, which in a way is fair enough. Of course, the fundamentals of cryptocurrency are not driven by price. There's a lot more to it than that. But it makes sense that the market in general cares about the price because it's the hardest thing to fake. And also it's the easiest quantifiable metric that you can just one look compare, right? So it makes sense that would really change people's mind once they see price going up.
Yeah, and also I think at least on the coin market cap side, they now mention like an index. I think that one is top 20, but I can imagine a bunch of investors also diversify across, for example, the top 10, or there's some automatic indexes that diversify according to. So it does matter also for like portfolios which diversify according to this top 10. That would also be like some extra liquidity. And then specifically for Cardano, every rank we go up, someone else, of course, has to rank down. And Cardano, they're kind of in the same market space because they are a UTXO blockchain, and they have been doing years. They have been talking about DeFi on UTXO and publishing research papers and saying it's around the corner. But their user adoption for this DeFi stuff hasn't really caught on, as far as I can tell. So if we, with our kind of DeFi story on the Bitcoin fundamentals of a blockchain, can overtake them, like from a negative perspective, I think there's a lot there, and some it will create some controversy and some interesting discussion from the Cardano community, I think.
Well, some Streisand effect. That's right, exactly. Then they are going to be in that position of they have two roads ahead of them, and obviously it will end up being a bit of a bit of A and a bit of B. But basically, they could be salty and be kind of like, oh, BCH, these shitcoiners, they're just pumping, trying to dismiss it, or say that. That's kind of the reason that I really like this graph, is that if you just look at it, it shows like, okay, these guys have been at the bottom, they turned it around, and they're on the way back up. And it also, if you look at this graph, part of the point that it's subtly making is it is since 2017. Like, this is nearly, 8.5 years, close to becoming like a 10-year decade turnaround. It's not like, oh, this just is one pump that just happened the last month. Like, if you like the Zcash chart or something, if you looked at it like that, it would be and it would have this huge spike up and then huge spike down, and then kind of like that would be it, right? They haven't at least been prominent in the narrative long enough to build up that credibility over time. But I think this graph really highlights, like, wait a second, these guys have been working this whole time. So it's up to the Cardano community whether they want to be salty about that and whinge and complain, which undoubtedly some of them will when it happens, or if they say, maybe we need to look into this. Maybe they're doing something right that we're not doing. Maybe this is not just a random, fluke or something. So I don't know if you have any predictions as what we'll see more of. I would guess more salt. That's going to be.
Yeah, I think so as well. More salt, and maybe, of course, then it's up to us to jump in and take part in that discussion and try to inform some people, because of course, when topics are in the news, that presents an opportunity, but it's also up to us to get our side of the story out there, because no one else will do it except for us, right?
Yes, and we're going to try and sort of set the bar higher in a way as well too, where if they're being salty, just kind of, you can be straight up about that and be honest and be like, okay, well, you're being a bit salty, and then try and move it into a positive direction, to still
very
be
important,
friendly, and showing them about the tech and explaining what we're working on and all that kind of stuff. And then after that, you have Dogecoin at number 9 and Tron at number 8. So again, I feel like I'm calling it now. It's already going to be known as like the battle of the jokes. I feel like Dogecoin and BCH. If BCH can flip Dogecoin, then that will, again, people will try and dismiss it or find some this joke, one joke flipping another. But that's very significant, because if we can get over Dogecoin into number 9, then you're entrenched in the top 10.
Yes.
You're not just like peeking up into it. And again, on this graph that we have here, there's like the lines, the bars on the graph are at 10, 20, and 30, right? And we hit that 30. We actually went down to 31, but that was in between the two data points. And so if we hit 10, we hit this line, and then 9, we would then be peaking above that line. Psychologically, it feels like, okay, well, if it keeps going, it's going up to number 1, basically, right? So I'm so excited about that. I think it's great. I'm glad BCH has had such a good year.
Yeah, and I think also from a negative perspective, if we come close to Doge and the negative takes place, that this is like battle of the joke coins or whatever, then I do think there's a very easy opportunity to just present what like network upgrades or what tech was developed on BCH, because it's like that would be such an easy negative to refute, because it's just not based in any reality. It's just people being ignorant. So
yes. Yeah. Oh, well, anyway, we'll see. Top 10, probably not going to hit it this year. We've only got a couple weeks left. Like I said, it could happen, but maybe 2026 is going to be the year. Do you have a thought? And we've got, if we get into the top 10, will it create enough hype to then boost us up another couple? At some point, the flywheel starts, right? If we're at number 4, BCH would just be the biggest story in crypto, undoubtedly. And there's the same thing. I've asked Paul Stortz, I've asked different people who've come on the show, what number do we need to hit before it just becomes an unstoppable snowball? Do you have any thought? I am sort of feeling like 8 probably doesn't do it. Flipping Tron maybe doesn't do it. But number 7 is actually currently Solana. If we flip Solana, that might be enough.
Yes. And then people will again do a battle of the centralized coins with high scalability or something. They will make up another narrative, but I do think that then we would definitely be amongst the biggest conversation drivers if we can make it up to Cardano level. That would be very bullish.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, we'll see. Our guest today, you've already heard a little bit from him. Mathieu Geukens is the author and developer of Cashinals wallet, cash script programming library, and ParityUSD, which we'll be talking about today. He's also done Cash Ninjas and Tokenaut, DeFi. You've done a lot of stuff, mate. Give us some reflections on how do you manage so many different things at once.
It's not always easy. So for now, my focus is with ParityUSD to build a stable coin, a decentralized stable coin, and a DeFi protocol for Bitcoin Cash. And some of the other projects are more in the background. So that's currently the status of my work, but I do think there was many things which needed to be created in Bitcoin Cash, and which is also why I started a multiple projects of my own. And I think there's still, if you look what's missing, you can still compile a whole list. So I think there's plenty of opportunity for others to come up with new novel projects. But I do think longevity is very important. So not to create something and then abandon it. So of course, maintaining it is one thing, but ideally you can keep improving it. And I do have pretty big plans even for Tokenaut going forward, because I think a DeFi dashboard which focuses specifically on BCH stats and metrics will be very interesting, especially as it grows, as BCH DeFi gets more and more protocols and projects. So, yeah.
And so how do you have, people that you work with? I know on CashScript you work with Roscoe and all of that, but basically the way you manage more and more of these things, it's the same as how does Elon Musk run 6 or 7 companies? Well, the way he does it is he has a whole ton of people that are helping him on all of each of these different ones, right? And so then, the role becomes less about you individually, coding up everything, but more kind of providing the direction and, collaborating with people, linking up the resources that are needed and so forth. Do you have much of that happening now? For instance, with Parity, I believe you've got at least a couple of people working with you on that, and then that expands out over time, but then maybe you could start having people help out on Cashinals and stuff. What's the game plan there?
Yeah, so it's not at a big scale yet. So ParityUSD is a small team, and as you said, for CashScript, I work together with Roscoe, so that's a 2-person team. But then it is true that we also sometimes involve other people. So, for example, now we collaborated with Andrew, who made a Python library, CashScript Py. And so, that's a little bit of outsourcing and more management. But usually I'm still very deep into the details and into the code, which I like. And for Parity specifically, we also have some blog that we do and some marketing. And so it's a bit broader than only the code. But I would like to get better at scaling this up, right? So as you say, involving more people, talented engineers probably for the code part, but also for the other parts, like for the communications or for the marketing aspects or things like this. So that would probably be something for me to focus on 2026. But for now, I've focused on keeping everything lean and making sure that's like a solid foundation to build on. So I don't think any of these projects will go away. The opposite, I think all of them will go much larger, and indeed that each of them could have like a team working on them, but we're not yet there yet. So.
Yeah, but we got to get like that's because it's the same thinking I'm having for 2026 is I always feel like, okay, should I just launch another thing? Because I have so many ideas. There's so many of them, but there's like Blizz, the podcast, and we've got Blaze, we've got Celine, and I always have more and more and more ideas of like how I can help this and start this and do this. But at a certain point, you got to just realize, okay, I've got enough plates spinning. Like I need to just make sure they're all working faster, basically. And that's where BCH from its small community is putting out so much output because there's so many people that are in that situation where they're kind of involved in several different projects and they're putting a lot of work into it. So I think people in general, myself included, are going to need to do a better job of sort of leveling up to the point of pitching people for investment money and then being able to redistribute that. And then, of course, that will create a whole slew of opportunities for people to get hired into BCH. And then once we're bringing in those people, like then that's where the exponential growth really just kicks off, because suddenly all these different, like starting is the hardest part, right? So if we have a lot of things that are already working, something's already happening, and then you just start supercharging like a ton of different projects at once, suddenly everyone's going to be like, holy cow, there's so much going on in BCH. So I think we're on the right track with
definitely agree. Yeah, definitely agree. And I think for scaling, this might be an obvious point, but for scaling, it matters that you have business, like a market fit, a product market fit, and like a income, and of course that's important for having anything sustainable. So for ParityUSD, this is my first real entrepreneurial venture, in the sense that there's a company was created in March of this year, and there's investors, and and there's a small team dedicated to it. So I'm very excited to build this out. And of course, if the user growth and the metrics are looking good once it's launched, then you can then you have reason to scale the team and to get more on board. But in the beginning, you probably want to be lean, ship something, see make sure that you have some kind of product market fit and there's demand, and then you can keep growing your key metrics like users and total value locked and amount of clicks and things like this.
Yeah, we'll get to Parity in a moment, but just before that, I wonder if you wanted to make any general comments about how the BCH scene is looking at the moment. Obviously, we talked a little bit about the prize, which is one aspect of it. We talked about the project you're involved in, but just overall, like Layla has locked in. I guess you're probably feeling good about that. But for 2026, like where do you see the BCH community going in general?
Yeah, so I think the Layla lock-in is extremely bullish. And I'm very glad that with CashCrypt, so our smart contract programming language, we're seeing a lot of adoption, like to a level that we couldn't have predicted like last year. For example, Peitaka is doing university courses on it, which is pretty crazy that we're creating a language that is already taught in at university workshops. And for example, in the Blaze hackathon, we saw a bunch of new people trying it for the first time using our web IDE, the CashCrypt Playground, and actually starting it and finding it pretty easy to get into the mental model. All of this was like totally inaccessible just 2 years ago, or maybe even 1 year and a half ago. So the adoption of CashCrypt has been very positive, and especially because CashCrypt is just a building block. So it's a building block to make finished products. It's one library and one way to create smart contracts. So to see people leveraging this to then use the new opcodes and the new network upgrades to build big projects is very encouraging to see. And indeed, it's often starting that's the hardest part. So when I see the Blaze hackathon and all these people, some of them which have never built anything, at least not with CashCrypt, and they can get started, can build like a prototype, that makes me very optimistic that if they want to follow through, that they have already like done the hardest part, which is getting their feet, tipping their toe in the water, or Well,
what about that also provides an opportunity then when you see new people coming to it, they have a fresh perspective, and it maybe opens you up, because that's the thing when it's important to dog food your own projects and use them yourself. But of course, you tend to use them in a certain way, and then often it's surprising when somebody it happens all the time. Celine, Callisti, and I have our favorite user patterns that we do, so we find bugs if they're on those parts. But then we have someone immediately install it and just do something that we would never have thought. Like the first thing they do is go and change 5 settings. And then, I don't know, try and wallet connect or something. Like they don't even make a transaction. So you see, things through users' eyes in that way. I'm wondering if you're thinking about sort of onboarding, maybe having, I know you already have some YouTube videos and so forth explaining, but was that sort of a stumbling block? It seemed like we saw that quite a bit in Blaze in terms of users not really being sure, where or how to get, it's all too decentralized in a way. There's no go here and watch this and get started. That was my impression, but I don't know if you had the same thought.
Yeah, so I think the CashCrypt documentation is good for CashCrypt, but indeed there was a novel things that came out even just in advance of the hackathon. For example, the Wallet Connect Starter dApp, I think by Pat. And so of course, if it's pretty new, there won't be any tutorials or guides on it, except maybe for some limited documentation. So I think there's an opportunity there to do a write-up or a guide or some kind of blog post or a video tutorial. And one of the things I like is with the earlier videos I made. So some of them are I think more than a year old, but these are some of them are pretty timeless. So during the hackathon, some people referred to them and found good information. And it also scales my bandwidth, because I've tried to help some people during the hackathon, but it's much easier if people can find a good resource that was recorded a year ago and get started with this, rather than that there's a need for much hand-holding and individual guidance, which is not super scalable in the long term.
It's not super scalable individually, but that's the interesting part about it. That's part of what we're trying to do with Blaze, is maybe you and I don't have the time to handhold every certain person that is onboarding to BCH. But if we can get some more people into BCH with Blaze, then that's true. Then they can be the ones who can, each generation only needs to help the next generation, and it can grow exponentially like that, because that's just a growing ecosystem, and so it's really exciting to see that. Yeah, okay. So with Parity, let's talk a little bit about that. So this has been, I guess, your major project this year. It was supposed to launch on the 4th of December, I believe, but it's been delayed. It's a stable coin based on Liquidity V2, similar to Moria, but same but different. It does have some different elements and approaches. So just walk me through that. Why did you decide you want to do a stable coin? What happened with the launch being delayed, and why is it different to Moria? So that's a lot, but
yes, that is a lot. That is a lot. Yeah. So to first recap, indeed, ParityUSD is a decentralized stablecoin we're building for Bitcoin Cash. It was announced at the Bliss conference in May, so half a year ago, more or less. And and we were with our timeline, so we were moving pretty fast. And then so we set indeed our initial target launch day for this year still. That's what we announced also in the initial communications. So December seemed like a nice target, but we had to delay, so it will be for early next year. And as it says in the screenshot, so this is a message from me on Telegram saying that, of course, the protocol security and the having a good product is, of course, the most important. So a delay, while of course it was not our ideal plan, so it's definitely unfortunate. And ideally, we would have we would not have had to delay. But I think we're in a very good position. Just early next year, get everything super solid. Make sure that the contract security and audits are all perfectly in order. Also do some more public communications, because we have quite a lot of stuff to reveal still, including a follow-up blog post, which will be public tomorrow. So by the time people watch this, they can check the blog if it's already on there, with a whole breakdown of why we why we delayed and postponed the initial launch, and what our new plans are for early next year. So that's the part of the launch and what we're building. as I mentioned, we're a small team, and this is my first real entrepreneurial venture. I think this is something Bitcoin Cash really needs. You can find a lot of interesting ideas, for example, in the DeFi space that's unexplored, but you need someone to really own the idea and spend a lot of time to get the details right, to make it a whole finished product that's accessible to users. So that's that's on a high level what we're doing. And why we picked this decentralized stablecoin is for some of these projects, the DeFi projects, you need an established ecosystem. For example, if you want to do lending and borrowing with a money market system, then you need big established tokens that people want to borrow against. And it's just the fact that the the token ecosystem, the cash tokens ecosystem, is not mature enough yet, and with enough liquidity that this kind of project is really viable. So the big selling point in my mind of a decentralized stablecoin is that it is standalone, so you don't require any existing liquidity or any existing tokens to be big to launch this. And so that is why we thought it was a great way to help build out this cash tokens ecosystem.
And well, hang on. Let's dive a little bit deeper on that. So then you have, for instance, in the broader market, you have Tether, who I saw this week were starting to look into buying Juventus, the Italian football team. They're busy making billions and billions of dollars from their scam that is probably being, propped up by the government, or it will eventually, destroy itself in some giant conflagration given long enough. But you have that, you have USDC, you of course have all the stable coins in ETH like DAI and so forth. So comparing to those options, what is Parity doing the same or different?
Yeah, so indeed, from the big stable coins, you have two categories. You have things like Tether and USDC, which are clearly centralized and trusted. And you have the category of DAI, of decentralized and over-collateralized stable coins. And so ParityUSD is clearly in the decentralized category, which means there is no trusted issuer which you need to rely on. Instead, it's over-collateralized by the native crypto asset, which is Bitcoin Cash on the Bitcoin Cash blockchain. So that's the high level difference. Tether is the biggest stable coin and can do they can confiscate coins or freeze coins on addresses. And I think on EVM, most of the stable coins you see have a confiscation or blacklisting strategies. So this is also very different. If you build a decentralized stablecoin on cash tokens, it's uncensorable and unfreezable or unconfiscatable by default, which I think is very important. So the trust aspect is pretty much fully removed. The only thing that decentralized stablecoins still have is an oracle, so there is a need for a price oracle. But this is very different from having a trusted issuer, which has billions of dollars in government bonds, and which needs to manage centralized accounts and needs access to banking, and which needs audits of their Bahamas company or something. This is all very different from a decentralized stablecoin where you can just look on chain, see that the contracts indeed require over collateralization with a crypto native asset. So there is no banks involved, especially no government bonds or government banking accounts or ties to the central bank. So in that aspect, it's much more transparent, auditable, trust minimized. So I would say, that's the correct term, trust minimized, because there is still some oracle, but as best as we can, we try to remove all trust from the system.
So tell me a little bit more about the oracle. What's the system that you're using there, and how could that be potentially a problem, or how is that mitigated from being a risk?
Yeah, so the oracle we're going to use is oracles.cash, which has been running for years. It's managed by General Protocols, and this is the one established oracle provider on Bitcoin Cash. So it's also what you use when you use the BCH Bull product or any hedge. And this has been running for years. And the reason is there's on EVM, the most popular solution is Chainlink, which tries to have fallback oracles and link oracles to smart contracts in a way that's reusable. But in Bitcoin Cash, we don't have a Chainlink equivalent yet, or Chainlink is just not present on the Bitcoin Cash blockchain. So to use the most established solution, we're also using oracles.cash by the General Protocols team. So we're collaborating for this to use their Oracle solution. So in this sense, even you don't need to trust us for the Oracle, but we default to the most already trusted Oracle, which has managed the most capital and has been around for the longest, and also has the established security practices, right? I think are like very, very good.
Yeah, and I know you can, maybe at some point we'll get one of the GP guys on to talk about that in more detail. I know sometimes somebody comes in their Telegram group and asks, what about this Oracle, blah, 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 and they have like a long answer and all the specifics. That would be a good thing to dig into. Are you bullish on more oracles coming into the scene? Because it seems to me one of the most obvious mitigating strategies you can do is have 3 or 5 oracles and do a comparison between them. So it's either an average, or maybe if one of them's a giant outlier, 1 of 3 or 1 of 5, then you ignore it or something like that. Are you expecting to see more Oracle projects coming into the BCH ecosystem as we grow?
Yeah, so one thing I definitely expect is that someone will try to make the Chainlink equivalent, but then for Bitcoin Cash or for UTXO blockchains. So that's one thing I expect that will be developed. Also, we're mainly using, we are only using the BCH USD price, but for example, with any hedge, you use a bunch of different prices, like the gold price or whatever. But if you have projects like prediction markets, you want even more access to outcomes of different events. So I think it's also we will see just a bunch more oracles, just because of the fact that different type of projects want different information from the real world. And for the general category of prediction markets, you want a bunch more information. And so you also want novel protocols to reveal this information to the chain.
And so this is based on Liquidity V2, if I'm not mistaken. What is Liquidity V2 and why did you choose to base it on that?
Yes, Liquidity V2 is a decentralized stablecoin protocol. Their stablecoin that's from the team itself, which created the protocol, is called Bolt, and it's on Ethereum. And so to zoom out, DAI is the longest established decentralized stablecoin. I think it's been out since 2015, and so it's been out like 10 years, and it's still holding its peg. But over time, it changed quite a bit. So, for example, now it's also backed by fiat in government accounts, and it's not all backed by Ethereum. So the nice thing about the Liquidity V2 protocol is it's fully collateralized by the native asset. So you don't need, as we said, if you want to minimize stress, this is a very good property. Also, the liquidation system and the stability properties of the Liquidity V2 protocol are very good. And it's been live on Ethereum since March this year, so it doesn't have a 10-year track record, but it has already proven itself in the wild with market volatility over the past year. And so you can see this is a version 2, so it improves on the original Liquidity V1 design. I won't go into the details, but it's generally acknowledged, even in, for example, if you talk to people building on BTC, and you see a lot of layer 2 solutions which want to also create a stablecoin. You ask them, like, what is the most cutting edge stablecoin protocol that's like an elegant design and trust minimized? They will very likely also say Liquidity V2. So I would say it's becoming kind of an industry standard that's widely exported across chains. And so we want to, as closely as possible, map our project to this trusted or established protocol.
And like you say, the BTC industry as a whole, in their long, slow collapse into basically reinventing TradFi, have become much more interested in stable coins and all these sort of banker types and people that are getting involved there, where BTC is not so threatening that they can't get a handle on it. They sort of understand the idea of, okay, we're going to chuck this in our custodial vault and not move it for 15 years and then create some financialized products on top of it to, sell to retail, right? That there's a lot of that stuff going on, which has made stable coins a much bigger story than perhaps it otherwise would have been, right? In an alternative universe, where BTC was able to scale or where ETH was able to scale between those two things, maybe people would become more familiar with transacting in crypto natively. And of course, we've also seen with OpenSea this week, they've recently changed their default for buying NFTs. It used to be like 0.1 ETH, and now it defaults to how much USD. So we're kind of going backwards in that sense, with people getting more used to just using the fiat system, but with cryptocurrency baked underneath in the infrastructure. I'm wondering if you had any thoughts on that, and whether that also maybe motivated you to choose this project, because it already seems to be on this giant wind. Like, a lot of people, you can talk to them, they say, oh, crypto, they still don't get it, but stable coins, now you're talking,
Yeah, so I would say that indeed stable coins have found product market fit. Some people have described it as the killer use case. And I don't think these trusted stable coins, which kind of don't leverage the underlying asset at all, are like very symbiotic to the crypto ethos. But decentralized smart contract based stablecoins definitely are, because for every decentralized stablecoin that's out there, there is a matching native collateral, so native crypto collateral. So instead of locking fiat in a fiat bank account and creating increased demands for government bonds or government issued fiat, instead you increase demand for crypto. So it's a big driver, I think, both already but also in the future, for increasing the total value locked, so the lowering the supply that's circulating of crypto assets. And I think all of DeFi has that property, but especially decentralized stablecoins, because they can quickly reach hundreds of millions or even billions of total value locked once you look at these biggest projects.
Amazing. And obviously we already have Moria MUSD on BCH. They've been running a little bit longer, so in a sense you're starting behind them. But also that's somewhat an advantage, in the sense that you've been able to see how their launch has gone, how they've done things, and maybe you've been able to adapt or tweak your approach to be similar or contrasting in different ways. Talk to me about that. Have you been watching their project closely, and what are you doing the same and what different?
So I have been watching their project, especially because it was, I think it went live at the Bliss conference when Parity also was announced. So it's logical that there's some friendly competition. I think many different designs can exist next to each other. So it's a good question to what degree the features overlap or are different. But I will admit that if you have not used these decentralized stablecoins, it gets technical pretty quickly. But if you are active in, for example, the groups of users, the Telegram groups, then you will see a bunch of users also have strong opinions on which aspects they like and don't like. So, for example, one thing that's the same is both use the cash tokens technology and are backed by BCH. So that would be what's the same. But then what's different is kind of how the whole redemption system works, how the whole liquidation system works, whether or not there is a stability pool to begin with. So also how you manage your loan is different, because in both systems you have an interest rate. But in ParityUSD, you can assign, and this is part of the Liquidity V2 protocol that we're based on, you can assign an interest manager, and then you don't need to manually update your interest rates depending on market conditions. You can just use, or you can run your own bot, and then you delegate it to your bot, so you don't need like a hot wallet which manages your loan key. Instead, you can create like an interest manager, which can be a bot you manage or someone else manages, and then you can have variable interest rates which adjust to market conditions. So that's one aspect that I think users will like, that they don't need to manually do this. Also, the stability pool in my mind is very important. So in a stablecoin, you kind of want to ask what happens in black swans events, like what is in the worst case, what's going to happen. And so, for example, if there's a big price drop, we have seen those in crypto, like if in 1 hour we see a very big red candle or something, how is the system going to behave in these kind of scenarios? And so in ParityUSD, the interest that we just talked about, is variable interest rates, they paid mostly to the stability pool. So you're paying to a pool which incentivizes people to stake their stable coins. And because of this mechanism, there will be a well-funded stability pool, which is always ready, which is always earning and incentivized to liquidate loans which are underwater or under collateralized. And so this stability pool, it also liquidates loans if it would be loss-making. So the Black Swan event we talked about, or like the huge red candle, and also you have to reason about what if your transaction doesn't immediately get processed. So you might want to liquidate a loan at the current price, but there's like two empty blocks in a row, or just because of the mining process for 1 hour, there is no block or something. So the price might have really dropped a lot, and it would actually be loss-making to liquidate the loan. But from the protocol's perspective, it's very important that any loans which are under collateralized get closed down, and so that the system is healthy and always over collateralized. And so I think it's this kind of more technical economic design where Parity shines, because of this stability pool, which is well funded and which also earns the interest earnings. But also in the usual case, there's actually a buffer when doing liquidation, a 10% buffer. So in the normal case, the stability pool earns interest and liquidation earnings. But then in the Black Swan event, it also takes the losses. So it shares both in the upside and in the downside, which can be attractive for stakers, and it incentivizes a healthy protocol working. So that's one aspect that it's a little bit technical already, but it's very important, I think,
It's very good. And like you say, you can definitely notice if you go in either the Parity Telegram or the Moria Telegram, on both of them, and you often have the same people in both groups who are putting in their opinions, discussing they prefer this, they prefer that, they're worried about this scenario or that scenario, or the interest rate is performing in a certain way, etc. So I think it's very, very healthy that the BCH ecosystem has at least two options, and hopefully in the future even more. It would be awesome if we had 3 or 4. Who knows if more teams will crop up to compete in that space. Do you think that's likely? Do you think, as BCH, again, we're talking about getting into the top 10, a lot of eyes turn onto crypto, maybe even the existing teams like Tether and so forth, they were on SLP tokens for a while, right? Maybe they make a comeback. What do you make of future stablecoin competition in BCH to look like?
Yes, I expect there will be quite a bit of a competition. And as we just said, there's a lot of different design choices you can make. And indeed, for some users prefer a different set of trade-offs. And so it's very good that the more options, the more power goes to users. And also the more different projects are encouraged to have a polished product, which is actually nice to use for the end user, because they can just easily switch to another DeFi product. So I think this is a win for the users and for for Bitcoin Cash as a whole. Of course, for the projects involved in this competition, it's a little more work or neck on neck sometimes, but I think overall it's been very friendly, and there has been some in both directions a knowledge exchange. So for example, we have open sourced the ParityUSD contracts, and I wouldn't be surprised if quite a few developers recently have been deep diving into the code we released. And of course, we want to share the inner workings, both for users and for the transparency's sake. But I think there can be some learnings from how we designed our system, and which others might want to copy in the future, for example.
Yeah, no, and that's amazing. That's exactly what we wanted. At the end of the day, everyone is still aligned on BCH, because you're a BCH holder, they're a BCH holder, all the users are BCH holders. It's the whole, overall goal is that at the end of the day, everybody's economically incentivized in the entire BCH ecosystem in the same direction. So a little bit of friendly rivalry and competition is good, because we're all screwed if we can't beat Tether and USDC. So
100%. So also on that note, it also doesn't make sense to fight over what slice of the pie you get, but instead our goal of all projects in BCH should be to grow the pie like 1,000-fold or even more orders of magnitude, because as we saw this total value locked statistic, I think it will go much higher, 100-fold, 1,000-fold in the coming few years. So it will be, that's also a metric that we will be very focused on with ParityUSD. And I can already say this is something we will have a stats page for, so where users can check the over collateralization of the protocol, but also some important other key metrics. including the total value locked, and chart this over time. And we expect an up and to the right. And I think that will be like a very positive thing that users can check regularly, or just even if they're not directly using the protocol themselves, it just highlights the power of Bitcoin Cash. So that's definitely something we will have day one, and that user can stay tuned for coming early next year.
Okay, and is that when the launch is going to be? I know you said there'll be a blog post tomorrow. Do you have any kind of hard dates that you can give us as to when we're expecting the launch now that you've had these second round of audits and so forth?
Yeah, so the blog post itself will be specifically about why we canceled the initial launch, and so this was because we found a contract bug 1 week out. So we're actually glad that this was caught, but this describes the process of how it was caught, what even was the bug, what did we learn from it, like what are we improving, what does this mean for the audit, because we had as is described in the blog post, there were 2 audits going on. One was fully, and both had also phases. So how it goes with an audit is you have the initial audit with a report and an internal report with results. And so then that we found some things, or the audit found some things to be improved. And one thing, that there was an economic design in the redemption system, which was highlighted in this initial phase that we should rework. And so we reworked it in the audit. And then, of course, you made code changes. So there should be a second phase of the audit which checks that everything you changed, that no faults happened. And so, of course, both ourselves and the auditor, we intended to fully find any issues, but something slipped through. So something that was not present in the couldn't have been found in the initial report, because this was code change between phase 1 and phase 2. We described this in more detail in the blog post, the follow-up blog post. It's just called the remediation period. And then we had a second review process going on specifically for these changes that were made between phase 1 and 2. And so that got a very sneaky bug. It's laid out in the blog post. And then, of course, once we found that there was some issue still, we called off the launch. And then our priority over the past 2 weeks has been to reevaluate, going over all the contracts again, going over also our processes to see what we can improve. And I can highlight already one thing from the blog post, is that we found that these most recent AI models, Sonnet 4.5, it has actually been surprisingly good at understanding cache crypt when we give it the context in our whole code base. And we have been, in the past 2 weeks, we have been extensively using these new tools, which are almost expert level. Like, I've been pretty impressed to generate automatic audit reports. So then you can create like a whole swath of audit reports with like agents talking to each other. And this has helped us to improve like the documentation and the code documentation in areas where it was lacking. And this has also made us feel much more confident in the overall contract security, because then we not only have the official 2 audits, which will have a full report, but then also internally we have, with the latest, as I said, Claude Opus 4.5 models, generated 10 plus audit reports internally. And these kind of models, they are to a level where they actually can find bugs. So, for example, recently in Ethereum, there was a lot of news with DeFi projects where if you give it enough context to the AI model as an auditor, it would actually find like vulnerabilities. And so, and this is accessible to anyone. So it's important, of course, that we leverage these tools to check for security, because day one, I'm sure someone else can run these same kind of audits to check for edge cases. So that was like one important realization that over the past few weeks we have been very busy with. And so there's no hard new date yet in the blog post. So we'll keep it early next year, because we're still finalizing these re-audits and this process. But regarding to the contract security, of course, we do admit that this was unexpected to call off the launch, but we do feel like it's in a very good state. Like, we took it to the next level, and that's what we've been really focused on the past 2 weeks to dive deep into this contract security, because you want to make sure that this is built, as it says in the screenshot, to stand the test of time. You want to release now something that GPT-6 or whatever cannot even find issues with, or because now it used to be only a small class of people which can find contract bugs, but now with powerful coding tools and analysis tools, these I think if there's vulnerabilities, they will be exploited. So the bar is at a much higher level. So that's kind of what we've been doing and what we are doing. But I recommend everyone to take a look at the blog post if they want to read up on all the details.
Yeah, and I think it is a good thing. And I haven't seen anybody too cheesed off about having the launch delayed. I mean, that's the whole point of the audits. If the audits find nothing, then in one sense, you're kind of like, did we get it perfectly right, or did the audit not do a good enough job? You never really know, right? So, of course, if you find an issue, it's better to have it found before launch, delay things a little bit, make sure it's rock solid, and then launch it. That's just the nature of software development. It's the name of the game in entrepreneurship. Everybody is always, rushing to do things as fast as possible.
Yes.
But if you do it the wrong, you take shortcut, the shortcut is always the long cut, basically.
Yes.
If you take too many shortcuts, you end up having to redo everything, probably after suffering a bunch of reputational damage, already having people losing money, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So I take it as actually a very good sign that this was found and delayed. And, that's just normal. That's the way everything works.
Yeah, so I do want to say maybe on the nature of the bug. It's also explained in the blog post. It was a mistake in an error, a logic error in the redemption process. So it wouldn't have resulted in immediate user funds or a big hack of the stability pool, but still it would have required a full redeployment. Of course, you want to catch things in advance. I totally agree on that. And then 2 more general points is, first of all, as you can see in the screenshot from the community reaction, it was actually very understanding and positive. So I want to thank everyone for this, because I know people were watching the countdown and were hoping for it to be out on December 4th, and of course the team as well. So it's but we're very positive going forward that we have fully reinvestigated the contracts, gone very deep, and finalizing that process. And then for the launch next year, it's a little delayed, but so we thank everyone for their understanding. And then a second point is that we believe that the 2 auditors the 2 audits that we have, the code audits, that it's we're happy to work with quality people, because as we said, there were in the initial phase there was a review and items that we changed, and then the finalized contracts, then it's easy to accidentally, whenever you change something, to not to introduce a mistake or something. So then we're also very glad that this was caught. So we want to say that we're very happy actually with the competency of the auditors, so this is something we want to put out there, because they are of course working at least as hard as us to make sure that these contracts are very solid and locked down. So
is that Lifestone Labs with Sayoshi Nakamaru?
So it's detailed in the upcoming blog post. We're working with Sig Hash Labs and with Sayoshi Nakamaru. So both of these are producing a full report, which will be public also. So that's another thing that will come out early next year, the full report, and then you can read up on their findings, including then this finding which caused the launch to be called off, which will also be, of course, in the document. So
it's a good case study for them as well too. And that's another aspect to this, which is just amazing, is we're here sitting at the end of 2025, and you and I both, have been following over the years as the BCH DeFi, it's kind of crazy to think about the cash tokens launch in 2023 and so forth.
Yes.
And now we're here, we've got DEXs, we've got stable coins, the tooling has to improve. Now we've got the auditing is a whole fresh little industry that is opening up, and it's
100%
demand. There's so many layers that comes to shipping a very high quality ecosystem of DeFi tooling, and you can't get it overnight. It doesn't matter how much money you have, which you usually don't have. But no matter how much money you did have, you just cannot spring up that whole ecosystem and supply chain and economy overnight. So it's just amazing to see it just growing, month after month, how always a new layer is being added, things get more sophisticated, and then that creates new opportunities for the next thing, right? So I'm super bullish on that. I'm wondering, in that note, if you have any predictions or any, obviously the launch next year will be your main focus, but just zooming out a little bit over the next 1 to 2 years, is there anything you can say about, at least at this time, what you think would be on the roadmap there, or where you would like to take things in the ideal case?
Yeah, we have a bunch of things that we're building. So one of them, which I can talk about, is that currently wallets don't very well interoperate with these advanced contract systems. And so one part of this is that the metadata standard, the BCMI standard, it is very well, it's like very extensible, and it has the current metadata which all existing projects use, which is kind of fixed metadata, but then you can also have parsable metadata. And so this can understand if you have, for example, an NFT or a contract, and then it can parse the contract data and show you the information specific to your contract. So how much is locked in your loan, what interest rate is your loan paying. So we're working on parsable NFT integration, or like a parsable contract information. So this is both on the wallet level, but also on the tooling level. And we think, first of all, we want to pioneer this interesting aspect that's unique to Bitcoin Cash. But then also we want to make the tooling available so others can also, without having to do this big upfront investment. So we'll also make it available to other projects. And we have already heard people who are very interested in this. So that's something that's coming later in 2026 because it requires rollouts with wallets on the tooling level, and also users are kind of new to this. So it will also be interesting to see the user response to these new details right into the wallet.
Yeah, amazing. I'm looking forward to that. We're going to be sitting here in December in 1 year time being like, holy cow, it's just getting faster and faster. That certainly feels how the BCH ecosystem is at the moment. On that note, we have our next slide, mFI, 500 million. This was a big headline that came out the last couple of weeks. MF International closes 500 million private placement to launch digital asset treasury strategy. And there's a specific quote here about from Hong Kong. This company have raised $500 million. Quote, the net proceeds will be used primarily to advance the company's digital asset treasury strategy, including the acquisition of Bitcoin Cash, BCH, and other select cryptocurrencies, with the balance allocated to general corporate purposes, end quote. So this comes about because this company, mFI, MF International, had a change in CEO to Dawei Yuan, from Huobi, who was previously at Huobi, one of the big Chinese exchanges, and apparently is a bit of a BCH fan, big blocker type of guy, because he's taken over and immediately decided to put, it doesn't say here how much, but any percentage of 500 million is going to make a big difference. And especially given that BCH is the only coin that is specifically called out and mentioned. Obviously, they left the door open for other stuff as well there too. So probably not the whole 500 million is going into BCH. But regardless, this is a very interesting change of scene in the BCH ecosystem, which has been for so long overlooked and ignored in terms of the big institutional money. What do you make of this?
Yeah, so first of all, it's interesting where the influence of BCH, because it's such a decentralized project. Yeah, if you influence some key individuals, you might not immediately realize or notice even who was influenced by, for example, the Bitcoin Cash podcast. But if you then see news like this, that really makes you wonder about like how many BCHers are doing things. And so specifically to this 500 million, I did notice that in the recent weeks, even though general crypto was on a downturn, BCH was actually making gains. So And this is part of the reason why Bitcoin Cash is the biggest gainer over the year. I think it might be related to this initial buying of the 500 million by mFI. So I saw some analysis and speculation. I'm not fully sure. Do you know whether they already started buying? What is the chatter?
That's it. I don't know. That was the thing, because people were speculating about this. Like, why would you put this out into the public until after? Like, obviously you want to load up your bag and then announce it and then get hype about it. But then some other people were saying, well, when it is this huge amount of money and you see, those other big companies that are doing this kind of stuff, they are, of course, operating under all these different disclosure laws and public filings, and they can't necessarily buy some until they've made a statement. But maybe that's why it's a bit vague. Like, they don't say exactly how much they're buying or whether they bought some already or all of it or none of it, So it's very hard to know what is actually happening here. Obviously, the news sounds bullish, but at the same time, I'm not just like, oh, well, it's all the money is flooding into BCH, because it feels like every so often you get this kind of thing and then nothing comes of it. Like, there was that period where Roger Ver announced he was going to do a $200 million BCH investment fund, and then nothing came of that. So some of the time this stuff gets announced and it all seems like it's going to kick off, and then it kind of doesn't, So
I agree. Yeah.
You can't be too hasty to be jumping in and excited about it. But what I do feel like is that we only need one institution. That's also another tipping point moment, because if we're just outside, yeah, that's right. Only one that actually delivers and buys up, because the change in BCH, if another 100 million or 200 million was used to buy up, probably not, it wouldn't be probably all market bought, but even some of it may be market bought, or just taking it away from other OTC, whales or whatever, who lost faith or wanted to cash out or something. Like, if that just becomes then emerald hands, all that money, that just makes titanic difference. And you only need one. If we're just getting into the top 10, one institution buys, it makes all the other institutions think, well, are we going to miss this one? So you 0 to 1, that's a big difference, right? So I'm very hopeful for that.
Yeah, totally. And then also the recent price action just makes you raise your eyebrow. So but we don't know anything conclusively, is then what I'll take from this.
There was also a noticeable spike in on-chain activity. Somebody had a graph there that it had just skyrocketed.
I did see that. Yeah,
somebody.
I think the volume, right? So not the number of transactions, but I think the transaction volume. Yeah, so that does indicate that big money is being moved. Of course, it can also be from cold storage to cold storage, or changing cold storage wallets.
It's hard to know, but I was watching the explorer.melroy.org. I was watching the BCH Explorer, and there's the new transactions coming in, $5, $50, $200, $3. And then there's one that was 43 million. And I was like, oh, so yes, of course, the whales are, it's that's why it's like the ocean. It's like whales in the ocean. They're quietly swimming around in the depths. You don't always know what exactly is going on there. But regardless, it's great to see BCH getting institutional interest, and maybe a sign of things to come in 2026, whether they're quietly accumulating or what. And then, of course, once their bags are full, then the step 2 is to start pumping their bags, right? To go out and create some hype about it, maybe reinvest in their ecosystem, maybe talk to their institutional buddies and get them excited, whatever it is. Looking good there. We've got a slide about Blaze. So like I said, it's been a couple of weeks. So we just wanted to catch up on that. We had Jerry won the ChipNet category with his portfolio rebalancer project, and 9500 won the mainnet category with his BCH IPFS scraper infrastructure project. We had 21 valid submissions, and we distributed over $10,000 in prizes, over 20 BCH. There's loads of builder interviews. We did the hackathon stream. Of course, the workshops are still there. So just if you're listening to the podcast, maybe you're a regular listener, we didn't redistribute all the Blaze content onto the audio feed. But if you go on YouTube and you look at the Bitcoin Cash podcast and you look on the live tab, you can watch all those Blaze videos. There's loads of content there that you might find interesting or educational. To check out. The event went really, really great. We've started up referrals to BCH1, which is one of our sponsors that is then going to do a Hackcelerator in January. So I've been talking to them about that, and that's now open for registrations on DoraHacks, and the thinking will begin on how to improve for next year. Obviously, you were one of the mentors, but you weren't participating. I'm just wondering if in hindsight you had any thoughts from any of the Blaze stuff that you caught up on. How did you find it? How did we do?
Yeah, you did. You did great. I loved seeing like all the energy because many people are figuring things out, looking up how to do things, asking questions. So that's probably the thing I saw the most of, is so many people asking questions, figuring out how this new stuff works, especially it was for the chiplet track. Everyone want to know what are these latest upgrades specifically about. How do I use like pay to script, for example, or how can I use loops with CashScript? And so we did also see increased activity in the CashScript channel. I also really like the short for explaining the upgrades. So that was great. And then I did also watch the winners being announced. I thought it was very cool. And then see the community award going to the post-quantum work, which from Moonsettler, which was very cool to see. Overall, awesome work. This was really what was missing in BCH. And then I'm also impressed to see that there's like a follow through to BCH1 for like possible investments, if I understand correctly. So I do think this is critical pipeline, so projects can be like incubated. As we talked about, starting is often the hardest part, but then once you want to take it seriously, you need some resources, you need to scale things up. Maybe you need you have costs or need some financial stability. So I think this is a great pipeline to have.
Yeah, I'm really excited. And so we'll see BCH1, to be clear, that's, out of my hands. Like I said, we're helping them out. But whether that goes great or terribly, don't blame me, although I am optimistic for it. And I think they're going to do a really good job. But then we will then have Bliss as well next year. So we're trying to build that sort of pipeline for new projects to be incubated. And certainly I know a couple of the projects are still working away and starting to spin things up. So it'll be very interesting to see what happens with that. It was great experience, and it was also a first time experiment. So we'll, next year we can maybe think about, probably mostly the formula will be the same, but there's certainly a couple of things we can improve in terms of linking people up into teams a little better. I think would also make a big difference, and potentially also having some more sort of templates and guides. Like people did find some tutorials, for instance, the ones you've done, the ones Aoshi has done, and so forth, but we didn't necessarily do the best job of having that all compiled, ready for people to look at. So I think there is definitely a lot of things we can improve, but I was very pleased with how it went. One of the projects which I had somebody ask me to ask you about was the Jump to Layer 1 project. I did see that, Turik, which was an AI that lets you put in your Solidity contracts from EVM, and then it creates like a UTXO version, or it guides you in that. Given you were just mentioning about the power of AI to review contracts and how it's rapidly sort of adapting to that new ecosystem, did you take a look at that, and what did you make of that project?
Yes, I did take a look. Not a super deep dive, but I tried like the example that was there, a voting contract in an EVM voting contract, and then you start the process, and then AI starts planning and trying to convert it into CashScript. And so the CashScript code is like a valid code. It does compile, but that does not immediately mean that it's like a safe code or that it's even the best design, but it is just impressive that if you want to get like a high level understanding of what would this even look like to do something like voting on cash tokens, well, then you can just get a like at least a rough example or one approximation of what it could look like. So I think it's super promising, especially especially for people who want to maybe they know Solidity, but they don't know the CashCrypt syntax, and then they can see what it would roughly look like to translate something. But what I've been talking about in the earlier in the podcast is kind of the reverse, where you do the manual work, so you know what each line does. So you kind of have this human ownership, and also once it starts managing money, you are of course responsible in some sense, or at least if there's backlash, it matters for your reputation. So I think for production software, which aims to have like large total value locked, I think the process of having manual line by line written, but then doing the reverse, having the AI review it. And then one thing we noticed with these reports is you want to get quite a lot of results. So you say, report anything you think that might be suspicious and be very critical. But then you get like a whole list of things and it misunderstands, like there's quite a lot of false positives. So the process we have actually been doing over the last few weeks was to get a lot of input from AI, but then like, oh no, it understands how underflows work. Oh, it thinks from Solidity or something. It misunderstands like how that we don't have big integers. Oh, we need to add that next time. And then you have like quite a lot of false positives. But then the one thing where it says, oh, this is like underdocumented, and this is actually a pretty weird variable name. It's like, oh yeah, these two we actually do want to improve. Like for the auditability, we do want to change these. So that's how we've been incorporating AI. Like I'm very interested to see what others do, like with jump to layer 1. I like the name. It's like come over from the EVM world where you're doing stuff in layer 2 and just jump over to the cash tokens layer 1 with CashCrypt. And generally, I really like that Blaze has really energized like stuff with CashCrypt. So you saw it in the groups and in discussions and people trying it for the first time. For example, Kilian, I was chatting with him recently, and he was using the new Python library that we mentioned, the Python SDK. And so because he's more familiar with this, and he could just start writing contracts in the 1 week that was there for the Blaze hackathon. And he was telling me, I can't believe that I put it off for so long. It's actually great. And I was telling him, it got a lot better over the last year and a half or something. So it's good that you try it now. And I think many people will like keep making CashCrypt based projects and smart contracts on BCH. So that's awesome.
Did you have a favorite project overall from the ones you reviewed? I mean, you already mentioned you like that jump one, you like the Lamport signatures one. I don't know, maybe one of the other projects. Did you have a favorite of any of them that you poked around on?
Yeah, so for the chipnet track, I think the Lamport signatures, it ticked all the boxes. So that was really impressive to me. And also just to see that we already have multiple strategies for like post-quantum stuff is pretty, I would say even mind-blowing or exciting, because if you follow the discussions on some BTC podcast, they're like, for example, Nick Carter is like talking, we need some strategy for quantum because people are worried. Like it doesn't matter if we don't know if it's in 5 years or 10 years, people are starting to worry and we don't have any strategy and we don't even have a plan of what a strategy could look like. So like, I think they're pretty screwed, whereas we already have like two things which could be mainnet deployed starting May 15. So I think in some sense we can have this Layla upgrade as the post-quantum enabler. So that was really exciting. I also like the Garden project from Salem Code. And so I think it was his first time also working with CashCrypt. And so he was asking questions, but he had a lot of positive feedback. So also some areas were highlighted where we can improve the documentation further. So that was, I really like the Garden project.
Yes, me too, actually. I'm looking forward to that one being on mainnet and having it in my little window up here while I'm working away.
And then the one last shout out for Kilian with CoinGrace. I don't think he open sourced everything, but he was working on like getting NFTs and staking NFTs so you can get NFT rewards similar to like a breeding type of game. So I thought it was really interesting. So shout out also to Kilian for building with CashCrypt. I thought it was cool.
Yes, so anybody who has been interested in BCH, but maybe if you didn't check out all the different Blaze content, definitely go and take a look at it. There's a lot there. We did 5 builder interviews. We had the 3 workshops. We had the showcase stream and several other streams as well too. So all up, there's a ton to dig into there, and you might be surprised at the projects and the people that you find being involved with that. Is a whole slew. Actually, quite a lot of people, which was also great to see, who have not been, like some, like Killian, I already know, and so forth. But a lot of people who I had maybe just been watching BCH, or they'd been curious about it, or maybe they hadn't been building in public or whatever, they all just popped out of nowhere. And then suddenly, like you said, there's just all this energy and building going on. So I'm very excited to see where that goes, because it wasn't just all the same sort of old guard, doing it. In fact, it was a whole fresh batch of people for the most part, which was amazing to see. So speaking of that, we have also had a new project pop up from Cashinals this week. A new Twitter account popped up. Cashinals is the next huge step for Bitcoin Cash utility. The inscriptions ecosystem almost fully ready for launch, with mint tools, native marketplace, NFT creation tools, launchpad, etc., and a slick looking website. So I'm speculating here, but I feel like maybe this is Jack Liu, or if it's not him, it could be somebody else from BSV, basically, who have decided to bring this ordinals, inscriptions kind of things to BCH, which is very, very interesting, because it means potentially people have done a full round trip where they started in BTC, then they were in the split to BCH, then they were in the split to BSV, then they went back to BTC with ordinals, and now they're like, I'm coming into BCH, coming in hot, So hopefully they've learned something on that entire journey, but I don't know. There's been no confirmation of that, so I'm speculating about Jack Liu. But in general, it will be some of these ordinals and inscriptions builders from BTC coming to BCH. Now, it was not too clear from the existing stuff they had how much they were adapting things from BTC directly into BCH, or whether they were making some changes. Obviously, the tech is very different, as well as, I guess, the community mindset. But it seemed like, for the most part, they maybe were just porting things directly over, and they hadn't quite clicked yet on, wait, actually, we can do things a lot better now because we're not sandboxed in by all these limits on BTC. But perhaps that will come. I am also bullish on that, in the sense that if the first step is for them to try and port their stuff, and then the second step will be, oh, wait, actually, we can do things a lot better. And then they'll make a V2, or they'll upgrade things. Like, all the incentives are there for that, because it will be easier. It will be cheaper for them. It will be, more efficient. So obviously they're going to figure that out. But step one is to get people interested. And I'm very interested to see this happening. I also don't know particularly too much about the inscriptions, and obviously I understand it in concept, but I've not been heavily involved in that, because there's been so much going on in BCH. What do you make of this? Is this going to be the next wave of excitement and hype in BCH? Inscriptions mania comes to big blocks?
I do think your description makes sense, where we saw like ordinals being tried on Litecoin and even Dogecoin. So it does make sense that someone tries to port the protocol to Bitcoin Cash. I did also see that some in the X replies that people explained, oh, well, we have cash tokens, and oh, you should look into this and that, a new thing. So I think probably if you would start this project anew with a fresh code base, not porting something existing, and you would start it for Bitcoin Cash specifically, then I don't think you would create this design which was clearly created for BTC. I think they would probably have to tweak it anyway, because the original ordinals were created for using Segwit and Taproot, right? Which are not on BCH, luckily. So they would have to at least speak that part, from what I understand. I do think it's positive, as you said, that people move around and try to build. I think they will find some excitement, and especially builders doing stuff on BCH. I'm not sure that the ordinals ecosystem is what will take off when we have already native tokens. But still, it's interesting to see. So calling me a bit skeptical because this was called BCH 20 or something, and we did have a CRC 20 or something standard on BCH. So I'm somewhat skeptical, but still I like to see builders trying to port stuff across chain. And I think just by the effort of trying to do this, they will probably figure out, oh, cash tokens actually exists, and I can easily build a DEX or something, and that would probably be a lot bigger and cooler than a new token standard, which is like just using indexers. So the big problem with this, one problem with this is that you need extra infrastructure that needs to be run just to see whether a fungible token exists or not. But with cash tokens, this is native. So all miners validate this, all Bitcoin Cash nodes validate it. So I think in some sense, the unique feature of this protocol is actually a drawback in some sense. But still, I like to see builders building stuff, and users can decide whether it's interesting or not. So yeah, that's kind of my take.
Yeah, it's cool to see that rising energy. And I think, obviously the BCH community needs to be open-minded to this, I think, in the sense that some people are maybe not, super keen on inscriptions, or some people maybe think, oh, well, there's just a lot of speculation or something like that. And especially if it does turn out, who knows, whether it was somebody who already had a history in crypto, maybe even some bad blood with different people in BCH or whatever, who'd been in BSV or done something, then I think, people just really got to try and be accepting and open-minded to it, because as long as, obviously people can be negative in the ecosystem if they are creating chaos, they're disrupting other teams, they're bringing a negative attitude, they're more interested in fighting than in building, or they're causing problems around quality upgrade proposals, all those kind of things. So it's not true that everybody is a value add in general, but by and large, network effect is network effect, right?
Yes.
It's good to have more people, and if they're going to bring some ideas that are unusual or different or whatever, that's fine. It's all in the game, some of them are really good ideas and some bad.
Yeah, I think we'll see a lot more of this, right? Permissionless innovation, which means the lowest hanging fruit is to just port things from elsewhere to BCH, even if maybe in our eyes it doesn't make the most sense. That's what permissionless development means. They can try and have fun and learn from the experience. So I would say to tie it back to my previous point, because you need extra indexers which are off-chain, and this data is not validated by the miners. This also means you cannot do DeFi. So this new token standard, I think it will have a pretty limited ecosystem because of this. But I still like to see builders trying, even if it's porting existing projects or protocols or tooling. I think we will see our experimentation explode, and that means that both good and bad ideas will be tried, and that we'll see a lot more also external people coming to BCH, often initially with their own ideas of what token protocols should look like, and then hopefully over time with discussion and knowledge exchange we can inform them of some of the things we've been doing with cash tokens and DeFi and interoperability. I think that's pretty important. But yeah, overall interesting to see, and we'll keep an eye out for future developments.
One thing I think we're definitely got to keep an eye on as well too is that potentially part of the whole issue, or such as it was, or the whole excitement around inscriptions, was that it did a ton to drive transaction numbers and increase block size, which then turned into worries about spam on BTC, etc. And so this is a very interesting, this arriving now on BCH, because if it does create a significant amount of transactions or start increasing our block size, those are two things that a lot of people pay attention to. That's something that sometimes if you're arguing with people and they'll say, oh, well, BCH, yeah, great. You've got all these points, but look, there's not actually that much on-chain traction, or the block size, oh, haha, you guys fork to be bigger blocks, but you still have smaller blocks, which is the biggest misunderstanding of everything, because it's kind of well, part of the reason that the blocks are empty is because we've just processed all the transactions. We don't have this huge backlog to constantly clog up new blocks, so it's such a misunderstanding about that. But anyway, the concept is that if BCH is getting more on-chain traction, I think, I was talking about last year, 2025, we kind of need more on-chain transactions. We've seen that a little bit, but it seems like maybe 2026 is going to be the year where that actually starts to pick up, and maybe even we're coming to like an eternal September. You know, I have a community comment of the week here from Callisti. I love this. He said, eternal September begins. And I feel like maybe we are on the edge of that, right? That BCH is kind of in the space that, whether it's this Cashinals project or other things, we're just going to start having all new people coming into the ecosystem. So we've got to get very good at onboarding them, right?
Yes.
All right, cool.
And I think, yeah, just generally that a lot of people they haven't followed anything what's going on with BCH. You really, and you retweet some of them, right, Jeremy? Just to highlight, like they're using talking points from maybe
Yes.
2018 or 2019, as if like we're talking about, oh, we'll have a post-quantum upgrade, or like have did on mainnet in May 15th, like in less than half a year, and nobody in the public discussion will even know what that this is possible. So I think we have a lot of work to do in communication, and of course that also means bringing a good vibe and being interesting and catching attention, and sometimes being provocative, but you catch more, how do they say it? You catch more flies
with honey than with shit.
Yes, yeah. Exactly. So this is something to internalize, I think. And I think overall we've been doing a good job, similar to what Callisti here is doing. To me, this is just positive outreach, even if we're not fully sure what this Cashinals will bring. We're growing as an ecosystem, so that's cool to see.
Yeah, try be open-minded, try be welcoming, and yeah, to the extent that you want to troll people for being ignorant, definitely do it. I do it plenty, but you got to just sort of show, make them look foolish in the service of everybody else getting the message. Like, oh damn, I'm out of date. I really need to look into this, and so forth. And that is also starting to decline. You know, this is where, you know, 2 years ago, 3 years ago, we're being ignored by everyone. Then the BTC guys that we harassed enough slowly started to figure it out. And then now it's sort of spreading into the broader crypto ecosystem. Like, oh, maybe something's going on here. But again, I still have my outdated dinosaur takes, you know. And so, yeah, you're right. To the extent that we can just get in front of them, the new stuff that we're doing, that's going to be key. So speaking of that, we have a slide here about cash cousins. We're seeing not only in the broader crypto ecosystem, the bigger coins, BTC, ETH, Solana, some interest in BCH. We're also seeing it in the other direction. The smaller coins like Nano or Dash that are on the same cash mission have also been paying increasing attention to BCH. You actually spoke at the eCash conference fairly recently, encouraging them to adopt the Cash VM as they were celebrating the release of their Avalanche upgrade. Tell me about that. How was that? What did you make of their progress over there?
Yeah, so it was a very fun conference in Barcelona. It was very nice, and I'm thankful that I could be a speaker. So they were welcoming, and it's called the Electronic Cash Conference. So I guess that's both not to the eCash brand, but also to the general, that other chains were also welcome. So there were supporters of, for example, privacy chains, of course, Bitcoin Cash. There was a FIRO speaker. So that was, first of all, interesting to see that they're also, at least on that front, welcoming and open-minded enough to allow for, or to invite other speakers. And so my talk specifically was indeed about the unlocking the power of Bitcoin script. And so I could talk about some of the upgrades we've been doing on BCH. Also, how I think that on eCash, this has fallen a bit to the wayside because they are focused on Avalanche pre-consensus, and which I think now has activated in November. And so it's mainly focused on fast transactions, fast finality. So definitely interesting topic and interesting research. But the smart contract or DeFi progress has all but halted. So my talk was kind of to explain the benefits of the Bitcoin Cash approach. And also because they're our cash cousins, they can actually learn a lot or even copy and port over and standardize things across this Cash VM. So similar to how the EVM is a standard now across a crypto, and it's kind of one for now. So any blockchain wants a EVM compatibility layer of some sorts to make it easy for builders to port their projects. Well, I think for UTXO, this kind of design is missing. So we could very well try to standardize the Cash VM. And the easiest would be, or like the opportunity here would actually be for eCash too, so they could port over some of our dApps and don't have to do the whole design of the system from scratch, but instead could learn from us and port, and also that would benefit us in the sense that it's increased network effect, and that you do kind of want to export your standards, because the wider it's adopted, the more network effect. So once you have the ball rolling, it's kind of
self-propagating.
Yeah, exactly.
So then what did you make of their impressions of BCH? How is Amaury feeling about BCH? Obviously they invited you there, so they were interested and open-minded to hear what you had to say. Do you think that seeing progress in BCH has made them maybe reconsider some of the issues that they were, adamant about in the split? Has that maybe mellowed out over time, or do you think they're happy with their choices and still kind of, negative on what's happening in BCH? Often you can get a bit of a vibe, meeting people in person. What about that?
Yeah, so this was actually my first time meeting Amaury Séché, and he, for me, that was like impressive. I also thanked him in my talk, because he is kind of the at least co-creator of Bitcoin Cash. So and played a pivotal role when the block size debate culminated into a split. So it was very cool to see Amaury, and it also makes sense that he has the personality to, and of course the technical expertise, but also the personality to be maybe somewhat disagreeable, or at least have enough conviction to create an alternative. And also he has a very strong understanding of I think incentives or game theory and economic understanding. So that was very cool to see. And of course now he's doing he's helping develop, or he's created eCash with his team at initially called Bitcoin ABC. So remind me what Amaury thought of.
Do you think that, and I mean, I'm looking forward to one day when I get to meet Amaury in person. I've had him on the show. People can go look that up. That was actually a very interesting episode. And like I said to him at the time, I think he's a very smart guy. He's got, a lot to offer and so forth. Maybe it's a bit of a personal journey, maybe for him and maybe for everybody. A lot of Bitcoiners are like this, in the sense that if you have a contrarian streak, as he does, as I do, as a lot of people do, you need, that comes with a lot of benefits. You start with a lot of, innovative, open-minded, free thinking. You're very hard to control, but at the same token, then maybe sometimes you can be, undervaluing cooperation or other people's points of view. All things are on a spectrum, right? So it's just interesting to me to hear, and especially with, we've seen the development over time with the BCH and BTC discussion, and I've personally done quite a lot, and the community as a whole has too, to try and ameliorate that and move things to a more productive place. We've maybe somewhat done that with the BSV crowd as well, with the Litecoin crowd. Monero people a bit offside at the moment. Nano a little bit kind of getting on the same page. A bit rocky. So with the eCash crowd, how are you getting from their impressions of BCH? Do you think they are rethinking some of the choices they made, or words said in anger in the past, or do you think they're still no, we were right, they were wrong, we'll show them kind of vibe?
Yeah, I think similar to what we discussed earlier is that the upgrades in Bitcoin Cash don't get a lot of attention. I don't think, I think my talk was specifically to highlight some of the things we've been doing, because probably from their point of view, I think they did see a smart BCH kind of blow up, and then it was of course easy to say, oh, you migrated off of SLP, or you didn't maintain SLP, and this new thing exploded. But I think cash tokens is not well understood, to put it bluntly. So my talk was actually an opportunity to kind of put my perspective out there, or at least the information of this is what we've been doing and what's new. And so my talk was well received in that respect. They are very convinced about the importance of Avalanche, so in the fast finality sense, but also it introduced like a hybrid mechanism where you have both proof of stake and proof of work. So it's a big change that you probably can't make or can't easily make on BCH. And I think they have been glad with their decision or trade-offs. I'm not sure. So that's I would say they would push the benefits mainly of what they've been working on. Of course, they would say, "Oh, we have this fast finality. We have things in the works for that can interoperate with our Avalanche pre-consensus. Staking is so nice. Now we have tools for staking, and the stakers are actually happy to earn rewards." So I would say that you can notice that the difference in development, they were mainly glad that they spent their time focusing on. But they do envy the comeback of BCH, what we saw in the rankings. eCash hasn't seen something similar. So I would say they're fighting still an uphill battle, both to get this SLP ecosystem, which they kept expanding and creating different standards to keep that going, but then also fighting on the price rankings, because eCash is significantly smaller than Bitcoin Cash, which is now almost the top 10 as we were talking earlier about. So that would say those two things were mainly the sense I got from the community, like not being too closely following the Bitcoin Cash doings, but I'm pretty happy with their own Avalanche pre-consensus and staking. And then secondly, a bit jealous about the price action, because their price action has eCash isn't, maybe in the beginning it was unclear whether Amari would take like the majority chain with him or not. Just before the split, there's always a lot of fog of war, and in hindsight it's easy to say, oh, it played out this way, but it was very much not self-evident to make this prediction, like when all the confusion happened. That was also one thing that was pretty alive, like the fighting against the industry. Even BCH has this to some extent, where the underdog story. But if you're on the second page on CoinMarketCap or something, this is even a much harder uphill battle. So that was also one thing that's kind of that I took with me from as an impression.
Yeah, well, I hope we see some of those guys. Amori, come to Bliss. I'll see you there, man. if you feel like it, grab yourself a Layla, start playing around with cash tokens. Who knows? Maybe you like it. Who knows? Maybe you hate it. And we've done everything wrong. I don't mind either way. It would just be good to see a little more dialogue there, especially as you say, if they're not able to follow, and which makes sense. Everybody's busy with their own ecosystem. Of course, they're busy enough working on all the stuff they're working on, so it's not like they would necessarily be following all the latest in BCH. But I just think it's interesting because it also encapsulates, like we're seeing a little bit in Nano, some of the stuff that they were working on recently, I know was like better wallets. They were also working on a stable coin and a swaps service. Of course, they don't have on-chain scripting, so it wasn't exactly like DeFi. It wasn't like Parity or anything like that. But they were targeting those same user needs. Basically, they could see that this was the direction the industry was going on, and they were working on that. Also in Dash, we've seen a stable coin that they're working on and a DEX. They're going to have a hackathon coming up, which I trolled Joel a little bit and said, like, oh, were you inspired by Blaze? And he said, no, we already had this planned, and etc. But I mean, I don't know about that. Like, we'll see. We'll see. Easy to say, oh, we were planning it, but then, we did it in BCH. It's working with BCH, so it would, of course, add more motivation for them to do it.
And it's also as one thing to intersect, it's easy to have like, oh, we want to do a hackathon sometime. Like on BCH, it was also something that was talked about like for years, literally, like probably since 2019 or something. People were saying, oh, when is there a big hackathon, either in person or remote? But it's quite another thing to actually pull up your sleeves and organize one, and because it's a tremendous amount of effort. I would say, worth it, but of course you had to do all the hard work. So I'm glad to see more hackathons also from the Dash ecosystem. So that's just some cool initiative. So I think probably inspired by Blaze.
It's like you say, I mean, well, it's funny because this is exactly how it should operate. It's easy to say, we definitely want to do that, but people really feel it hard once somebody else has something that they don't. Like even Bliss, the original Bliss 2024 was inspired by Jonathan watching the eCash meetup that they had and saying, God, why don't we have a meetup? And so now we've created Bliss and everything like that. So the ideas do cross-pollinate in the ecosystem. And that's why it's so fascinating to me to watch, maybe 3-4 years ago, there was much heavier tribalism amongst all of these different coins and communities, a lot of fighting on Twitter and so forth. But of course, as time goes on, people are specializing more and more into their niche, and each community essentially reaps, the harvest that they sowed, right? If they made good decisions, things going well. If they made bad decisions, maybe things are not going so well, or maybe they're discovering the pros and cons of the trade-offs that everybody chose. You make your bet and then you have to lie in it. So I just think it's really, in a way, it's very positive, and I want to give a shout out to the eCash community, Nano community, Dash community, maybe to some respects a little bit less, maybe the BSV community, that I think they're hitting on the right ideas. That's what this slide is really supposed to emphasize. Like, I'm seeing a lot less of people doing the wrong thing, because if you're doing the wrong thing, it's never going to work. But you can see they've got the right idea: better wallets, stable coins, swap services, hackathons. Like, this is all the stuff that BCH has been doing, which has been, working quite well for us, and also outside of us in Ethereum. The BTC guys, they like these ideas. Whether or not they're able to implement them is a different question. But, like, people are rapid. There's not a lot of difference across the industry in terms of what you need. It's really more in the specifics of how you implement it. So I think those smaller coins are doing a better job there, which is great, and I'm glad that they're paying attention and making good decisions. But the problem, like you mentioned, is you just have such low horsepower when you're in a smaller ecosystem, low network effect, low amounts of investment money. Doing promotion is also hard because you're a small coin, you don't have the money to do it, and that is just absolutely crippling. For BCH to rank up, like we've been talking about, we need to be performing above the level of the coins bigger than us. Like, that's how it works. We have to be doing not just a little bit, but a lot better than Cardano or Tron or Solana to gain ground against them. Because if they're moving at the same speed as us, they're a bigger network, we're going to lose by default. So we have to be outpacing them. And that's the same situation for these smaller coins against us. And when you are 80, 200, 500, whatever in the coin market cap, like, it's just so difficult. So my heart goes out to them in that respect.
Yeah, as a general thing in communication, we talked about it earlier, but also it's kind of fair to punch up but never punch down, as of course a generality. But like, it's much fairer for us to or better, I would say, to critique some things ETH is doing or BTC, rather than spend our energy, our limited energy, then critiquing projects which are with much lower resources, trying to do the best they can. I think that's probably So I like indeed that giving our Cash cousins a shout out for the stuff they're building and trying to accomplish, and keeping an eye out on what innovations they come up with. I think we have very much a plan of our own and are achieving our own roadmap, but still it's good to keep an eye out on what new innovations other ecosystems come up with.
Yeah, I sort of wonder where they're going to find an edge. Like, for me, I can already see. So, like, obviously the DeFi, UTXO DeFi is working well for us. We're going to have the post-quantum stuff that we've mentioned, mixing in some more of the privacy-related stuff as well too, as people get into the scripting there. I can see those are like 3 things that we can do to, step up above the coins that are bigger than us. For the coins that are smaller than us, if they want to compete with us on all those points, and they're going to need another thing and another thing and another thing to be better. Oh, it's an uphill battle, guys. But in any case, like you mentioned, let's maybe also punch up instead. We have in the BTC ecosystem a little update on what they've been up to. The newest thing from them is this thing, the Cat. This is not to be confused with OpCat, which is a completely different proposal, but this new thing, the filter brigade, Luke Jr., Bitcoin Mechanic, etc., that we've been following the whole time, they've been upset about spam, and they have their BIP 444, now BIP 110, which was about trying to restrict the ways that spam, quote unquote, could be put on chain. And maybe it's working, because if we're having Cashinals, maybe they are successfully discouraging people to ditch them and come to BCH instead. But anyway, they've created this second proposal, not them specifically, but this Claire Ostrom fresh anon. We had the Dathanome, now we've got Claire Ostrom, with the idea of this cat and mouse game that, the cat is always trying to catch the mouse, who is like one step ahead, which is what the quote-unquote spammers have told them for 2 years. Like, look, if you guys put in a proposal to stop us, we'll just change the embedding scheme, and we can just do that like overnight, while you guys have to do all this work to stop us. So you're never going to catch us, basically. And so now they've decided, okay, their proposal to stop this is called the CAT, which is to use the ordinals indexer to find all the ordinals, because of course the ordinal software know where it all is, and then make all of those coins, all those UTXOs, unspendable. So this would be like burning 40% of the UTXO set as it stand, which according to the filter people is all useless spam and is junking up their nodes. But according to the ordinals people, it is their sovereign money that they used perfectly validly according to the rules of Bitcoin.
So this would be confiscation. So it's a very drastic proposal. One question on the slide, it says, it would burn 40% of the UTXO set, representing...
250 BCH. Yeah, I typed that wrong. 250 BTC.
Oh, okay,
so we're talking about 250 BTC worth of quote unquote monetary value. So that's why it's a very big divisive issue, right? Because it's 40% of the UTXO set, so it's a lot of UTXOs, but it's only 200 and something roughly I've seen BTC. So it's a tiny fraction of the 21 million. Which is where it's creating the tension, because the ordinals people say, well, our Bitcoin is our Bitcoin. Like, if you're trying to burn it, that the whole point of Bitcoin is nobody can seize it, nobody can freeze it, it doesn't matter if it's one Satoshi. If you're confiscating one Satoshi, you've already broken that line between unconfiscatable. Like, that's it, it's over. And then of course, the other guys are saying, well, but look at how burdensome this spam is. It's like 40% of the UTXOs. Like, wake up. Are we really gonna suffer so much quote unquote spam over such a small amount of money? The answer is actually yes, they are going to suffer it, but they haven't come to accept that reality yet. There's also been a bit of chaos about this, because this proposal, like you said, being confiscatory, was sort of moderated, quote unquote, filtered, quote unquote, from the Bitcoin dev mailing list, which then upset the people who wanted to make it. They said, oh, this is AI slop and it's confiscatory, we can't have it on the mailing list, which created chaos, because then the people doing this proposal said, well, A, you're banning us as spammers, which is quite ironic, but B, like, according to the Bitcoin process, the BIP process, you have to be able to post on the mailing list to get a BIP number. So we can't get a BIP number because we're not on the mailing list, but you're not going to recognize our BIP because we haven't posted on the mailing list, which you won't let us do. So that's creating even more infighting, basically.
Yes, it's a real catch-22. I think the best thing the whole NOTS movement has done is to expose kind of what this BIP process, or just a process of trying to get an upgrade into BTC. How convoluted, or there is no clear process, or the process changes all the time. Whenever you think you're making progress, you're actually not. I think this ties into the next point of general chaos and dysfunction as usual. So indeed, it has become the kind of the norm on BTC. And the best thing is indeed that the NOTS movement is kind of it kind of exposes this. A lot of people are thinking, well, how are upgrades actually managed? How did Taproot get activated? Like, why did Schnorr get why did these limits get raised which enabled the spam, or why did we how did we do SegWit? And I think it is a really positive development that many people are starting to question the power dynamics in Bitcoin, because it's a popular meme to say, oh, there are no leaders, or there are no leaders in BTC, but actually that's not true. You have people with merge access. Taproot didn't fall out of the sky, right? There were people involved in pushing it, in reviewing it, in approving it. So there is a process. It just, the process kind of changes, and it's very vague, and probably you're trying to do fully the wrong thing. It matters more whether some of these old guard Maxwell or Peter Woolley are involved, and whether they approve it matters a whole lot more than and not being able to get a BIP number or not being able to get on the mailing list. It's just too absurd. This would be things that we said 4 years ago, but people said it's too absurd to be true. But no, that's actually what happens. You need to get on the mailing list, but you will be censored from the mailing list, and you need to get a BIP number, but actually the BIP process is totally arbitrary, corrupt, and changes the whole time. So chaos is the best.
It is absolute chaos, but it is, of course, very vindicating for us to see, point and laugh, jeer from the other side of the fence, because, of course, we don't have any of these problems. So that's a nice thing to see. But I think, obviously, we do have to sort of somewhat take a lesson from it, which is that we need to be aware, that what our process is working for us, but it just goes to show the importance of maintaining that over time. And especially if we are introducing new people into the ecosystem, we need to make sure that they also feel like they're being, treated fairly, and that they are part of the process, and that things are not done arbitrarily and so forth, right? So I think it's quite important for us to keep an eye on it in that respect. But it is very interesting to see the regret as well has super set in. There's so much discussion this year about Taproot and SegWit maybe being a mistake. There's been a lot of debate about that, and that's already the first thing. Of course, they didn't get to the second realization, which is the Bcash has told us. But even just that first step of thinking, oh, okay, well, we did this, and at the time we sort of said to ourselves that the limits were all correctly set, etc. But now they've made their bed, and now they're lying. Oh, well, holy cow, now there's all this data on chain, and some people are like, that wasn't the purpose, and other people are saying, yes, it was the purpose. In fact, it was all discussed at the time. Were you not paying attention? Did you not think it through? Did you not understand? And it's just
people want to know who made this decision, and then you get kind of gaslit. Nobody wants to take responsibility, but clearly people did decide on it, and not and
then it's like that Spider-Man meme with all the Spider-Mans pointing at each other. Exactly. It's like it's all the responsibility is so diffuse, which is the whole point. Of course, it's the point of the system is to be confusing and shift blame away, and then it comes back to hijacking Bitcoin, etc. So really, that's been one of the big stories of 2025 has been the BTC community, because 2024 was when the industry realized that hijacking Bitcoin was true, and then 2025 has been the BTC guys themselves. At least some of them still think it's a conspiracy theory because they think Core's doing everything right. Anyway, there's no saving some people. But regardless, we also had wait. Jump in there.
Yeah. There's a meme that I saw earlier this week that this reminds me of so much. It's like a little kid who goes to his dad and he's like, I've got a magic trick to show you. And he's like, I'm going to throw this bowl in the air, and when it lands, it's not going to break. And the dad's like, if this breaks, I swear to God, blah, blah, blah. So the kid throws it up. The bowl shatters, and the kid's then immediately starts gaslighting his dad. The magic trick was you were supposed to catch it. Why would you let your 7-year-old throw a bowl on the floor and break it? And I'm waiting for the BTC guys that made this mess to go, well, the people with the merge responsibility shouldn't have let this through. Who audited this?
Well, they already have that in the sense that there's been so much hatred and memes and everything has been pouring onto Gloria Zhao, who is sort of at the center of the whole thing.
Yeah, she's the scapegoat, but she wasn't involved back then. So
that's right. She wasn't even really involved. It wasn't her fault, but she's now the scapegoat. You're exactly right. Now she's getting blamed and harassed, and they have these clips of her, which are several years old, talking about oh, well, Ethereum, like I learned about that, and I was like, oh, this shitcoiner, she's bringing all this
She
nonsense.
mentioned Ethereum.
Yeah, exactly. Like, and now it's captured and hijacked. And who is this girl who doesn't know anything about what's going on? And it's like, bro, you are on Twitter complaining about this because your identity feels threatened because BTC is not the immutable digital gold you ever talked about, and you want to talk shit about her, who is like a competent node, like. Aside from her motivations, the fact is she has like hundreds of like pull requests into the main BIP repo. She's been like working on it full time. Like she can explain all this stuff at a depth like you have no concept of. Yeah, exactly. She just has the proof of work. So while I'm not, a fan of her choices in regards to, messing up the mempool and like the decisions that she's making,
not all work is good work.
That's right. I don't agree that it's good work, but regardless, she is doing a lot of work, so it makes sense and that's why she has reputation, and that's why she's in the position to be, merging. And then she gets a lot of shit when it's not just her; it's just that she's the one who's in control of the mempool code, which is the controversial thing. And then also the other ones are less easy to mock, maybe because, they're men or they're older or they've been around longer or, they haven't been on as many podcasts that you can easily like clip out something of, right? So it's just such a disaster happening over there. And finally, we got to mention this as well. 6 months ago, we said on the show when the CTV brigade put out their letter demanding, well, it wasn't demanding, it was like whatever, what did they say?
It was begging almost. It was please consider by this date, can you please look at our proposal and at least give feedback or merge? Didn't happen. Date was ignored.
Exactly. And that's exactly what we said at the time. We said, why would you write like a demand letter to your own hijackers? Like that's never going to work. Of course, it didn't work. 6 months has passed once again. Because I feel like part of the reason that they wrote the letter maybe was because we had been telling them, guys, you've got to have a line. You need to have a deadline. Otherwise, you can be gas. It's that thing with the bowl. Like you can be, if the kid just grabs another bowl and says, Dad, I'm going to do a magic trick a second time. Like it's like fell for it again. If the dad doesn't see this pattern repeating, like how many times have they said, oh, please look at it. Please review it. Please let's figure out the next step in the process. And it's just like you're just going in circles. It's like a toddler walking around a room and running into the same wall over and over and over, not able to understand like why.
I think also they first need to fully internalize what happened with Segwit and Taproot before. Like I do also get that they don't want to rush another upgrade if they think the last two were a mistake. But then also if you think the last two were a mistake, then BTC hasn't had useful protocol additions in 10 years, right? Because going back to before Segwit. So I think that's pretty mind-blowing to think about. And even when we discuss like new upgrades for Bitcoin Cash, it doesn't need to add like a tiny benefit, right? You need to say, not only is it a cost-benefit calculation where it needs to be bigger than the cost, at least. It needs not just there is a benefit, but there's a bigger benefit than the cost. But then also this will be permanent protocol debt, like code and complexity. So you want to be sure that this kind of forever, the bar is that we don't regret this in 2 years or 5 years or 10 years. Like that is the mindset with which you have to evaluate these proposals. So to say that they made two big mistakes in their two only big protocol upgrades over the last 10 years is like such a big dramatic failure. And they will have to pay this protocol in complexity and that going forward, and they can never really reverse it. And for example, they had like the ordinals and now the cat, so they all kinds of secondary second order effects, so much cost and wasted time and drawbacks, all because these were two mistakes. I think it's fair to say both Segwit and Taproot were badly designed. People regret them later. And it's not enough to regret them. You can't easily fix it. The second order effects are here. I wish there was a Bitcoin which didn't have Segwit and Taproot. Like that's kind of the point that people have to get to. But once they get to that point, then I don't think they will stick around at Bitcoin.
Well, then that's it. Yeah. And then it just becomes, can we accept? And that's why, like, it's so strange in a way that we've said it all on this show. It's been said literally since 2015. Like, guys, this is the wrong thing. If you do this, you're going to screw it up. You're going to realize later. Lightning Network, while technically being potentially one solution, nothing wrong with payment channels, not mutually exclusive with a block size increase, blah, blah, blah. Like, this is the wrong thinking.
Yes.
You're trusting the wrong core developers. You're investing in the wrong layer 2 technologies. You're going to screw up all the merchant network adoption. Think about how much of the industry now is popping off in ETH, Solana, like all these different things. People in hindsight, and people joining the industry now, they don't care. That's the other thing as well. If you're 23 years old and you've just thought about, oh, crypto, I've been hearing about that, let me look into it. You don't like come into a world anymore where it's like, okay, Bitcoin, I'm down the rabbit hole, I'm in all this. It's like, okay, Bitcoin, read a bit about that. Oh, Ethereum, that looks pretty cool, read about that. Solana, blah, blah, blah. Oh, BCH, just heard about that. We saw that in Blaze, people coming up that were like, oh yeah, you know, I looked into this, I looked into that, and one way or another, I got into BCH. That's happening every single day. Is the industry has just routed so much around like whatever those top BTC podcasts were. It used to be like the industry trendsetter ones, but now they're just like mostly for that echo chamber, right? There's podcasts for every other coin and for the general industry at large, the news sources. Like, again, if you want the BTC stuff, you have to go dig around in their kind of little echo chamber, but the general, you know, exchanges and etc. are just doing every different coin at once. Like, things have just moved so far past all the mistakes that they've made, and the price gains are not there to continue reinforcing that they're on the right track. That was one of the big things that they were telling themselves. Well, the price is going up, so therefore we're on the right track, you know, free markets, etc. But once those price gains slow down, suddenly, you know, what are we doing, guys? Starts to set in.
I would say that the lesson here is you can make mistakes for quite a while, but it eventually catches up to you. Even if you're Bitcoin, like the number one, the first mover advantage, the network effect. But yeah, you can only keep on piling on mistakes for so long, and then you have like all this kind of the nodes drama, the BIP 444, BIP 110, and the cuts now, like confiscatory stuff, and then they have the quantum stuff to worry about, but they won't even get anywhere close to a solution. So I kind of feel for them because they have dug themselves a deep hole, and I don't see how they will get out of it.
Yeah, well, like they say, if you're in a hole, step one is stop digging. So, I mean, that's where they've got to start. But I mean, of course, they're welcome to come ask me for my opinion, but it hasn't changed. We've documented it all in this show however many times. Go watch the Bitcoin Mechanic episode. We laid it all out there. Step one is you need to have everybody have the same vision. That's it. It's not about the code. It's not about the history. It's not about the technology. It's not even about podcasts or anything. It's like everybody needs to be on the same page. If you have a large group of people, that's not decentralized. Well, it is decentralized, but it's also just chaos and a wreck. And that's why you can't ship upgrades. And that's nobody knows, is it digital gold? Is it inscriptions? It just kind of, it is what it is. It's not a cash system, really.
People were using the cash system meme again because they don't like the data, arbitrary data, and the ordinals. So they're saying, well, it's supposed to be a cash system for monetary transactions, but then like you're limited to 1 megabyte, and then the whole history, the scaling debate comes up again. So they're like totally confused in their narratives. So
that's the price of being in such a giant hoax with so much misinformation and so many bad actors. And then, it's only just reality. Reality speaks louder than everything. Truth doesn't rust. It just takes a little while.
Mm-hmm.
But, maybe they're slowly going to be able to unplug themselves. Okay, we got meme of the week. This is a good one, and it's sort of related on topic. It's from some sort of recent cryptocurrency conference. CZ talking to Peter Schiff, of course, the famous gold advocate, on stage. Take a look at this.
It's pretty heavy. So I have a nice box here.
What is that?
It has some, I think it's Kyrgyz language. I took it back from Kyrgyzstan. He has a certificate. I got this from a very important person from Kyrgyzstan. Very recently, just completely by luck. So we take it out. It's pretty heavy. I'll put this down. You see, it says Kyrgyzstan, 1,000 grams, refined gold, 99.9.9, and a serial number. Try it.
Yes, yeah, it's heavy.
Is it real gold or no?
Well, I don't know. I mean, is this what you're trying to? I mean, let's see how it looks. Well, the color is a little. This is pure gold.
So
That's
it's
a good deal.
CZ getting a nice, easy win there over Peter Schiff in their Bitcoin versus tokenized gold debate, trolling him on stage. I also think CZ is also the perfect person to do it because he is like a mega rich guy. Like, it's completely feasible that he would just have some fat slab of gold like sitting around, that was perfectly authentic, or that he would have just to troll Peter, like invested 200K in making like a realistic fake or something like that. So you can see that Peter is really just like lost, like, oh shit, like I don't know, is this real, is it fake? And there you go. The point is proven instantly, right?
Yes.
Oh man, but he loves it. But it's kind of the same thing, Peter Schiff's in that same hole of having invested so much ego, so much time into the whole gold is the real thing. I mean, these days, really, his whole argument, which is why he gets so easily shredded by someone like CZ, is basically BTC is a scam, where he says, oh, you can't use it as a peer-to-peer cash, basically, which is right. It's correct. But then you say, well, what about all the projects that you can use as cash? And then he doesn't really have an answer for that. Nobody really presses him on that because he just goes on the BTC podcast, All right, quick shout out to NoHype85. Shout out to the Dragon Riders in the House of the Dragon in the chat. And also we have John Doe V7N4U talking about BCH being too slow because he didn't get a confirmation in the last 20 minutes. Well, for that, you can look into the 1 minute blocks proposal that has been discussed and debated. But of course, hopefully you can also get zero conf going. But there are some solutions there. Maybe just let's quickly touch on that. Mathieu, do you have any thoughts on 1 minute blocks? How are you feeling about that? There's recently been more discussion and debate around that proposal as well too.
Yeah, so I think I've brought it up in other discussion context as well, but for DeFi, it actually matters quite a bit because once you have like a smart contract UTXOs and many people interacting with these, and you start to get in unconfirmed transaction chains. And that's good as long as everyone wants to build on the longest unconfirmed transaction chain. But these are unconfirmed, so you can as well branch off halfway in an unconfirmed chain, and then either the whole, like you can have the whole chain happen, none of the chain happen. But if you have two branches, then everything that extends the one branch is very uncertain. So that opens a double spend vector. And then you really have to wait until the next block to see, oh, did it get included or not? Because in the mempool or like on the network topology, both exist. And so I think for DeFi, shorter block times would be very beneficial to solve this competing transaction chains. I'm not sure for exchange deposits. I know you have talked about it, but in the worst case, it stays the same. In the best case, it gets faster, or the exchanges get more confidence, or they just forget to change the parameter or something. So the worst case, it stays the same. The best case is clearly better. So, but I think mainly for DeFi is the use case where you would benefit from, especially once our DeFi ecosystem gets more advanced. You will see people who try to do these double spend things with, for example, Coldron DEX. They will try to make a swap which is beneficial, but uses the old price ratio and kind of skips ahead in line for a bunch of unconfirmed transactions. Because as long as it's unconfirmed and there is a profitable opportunity for a trader or an arbitrageur or someone advanced using this DeFi stuff, who can just ignore all your unconfirmed transactions and use a more favorable price to him, and then maybe he will try to bribe the miner, so at a very high fee, or maybe he will submit it directly to a miner, or maybe initially the miners might be the ones who try to game this DeFi stuff. And I think it would be naive not to look at least at the Ethereum ecosystem and see that there this kind of DeFi second order effect. So the how do they call it? The maximum extractable value, MEV, MEV. It's become so prominent that likely half of the transactions are involved with either.
It's more than that. I was seeing there was an article, Jason Dreiser posted an incredible article that I was reading, which was like something, it's like 80 or 90% of their block space is being taken up by this MEV that is going on. And for them, it's even worse. Like in BCH, I think this problem would be, it's a completely different situation with UTXO, but they're having a big problem because you can have transactions fail. So they have people that are paying gas to put in transactions that then never happen, but they've already paid the gas, they've lost the money. And then and they made contracts that like bet on that basically. So they make contracts that go into the mempool expecting to fail, but looking for an arbitrage opportunity at the moment they're in the mempool. And if they find one, then they follow it through. And if they hit like 1 out of 10 or 1 out of 100 or whatever, that pays for the other one. And then they're just spamming it up with all these empty transactions that are never going to do anything. And like, it's just a wreck. So now so much of their block space is just taken up with failing transactions.
Yeah, so I think if we are to take our DeFi ecosystem seriously and we're thinking about a more long term, then I think we have to put on our adversarial hat, right? Where like people want to make money doing things which are not intended but are still allowed. And then you can quickly see that these unconfirmed transaction chains become problematic in some cases. So you really have to wait for the next confirmations. And if that's 10 minutes on average, then it can take up to an hour. So, and then you never know, did my Calderon DEX transaction, you come back to the computer maybe an hour later and, oh, it didn't happen, I have to retry. Or, oh, it did end up happening. So that I think that would really deteriorate the user experience. So I think from an MEV DeFi ecosystem perspective that, faster blocks would help a lot. And I think 1 minute is kind of expected by the industry at this point, or maybe 2 minutes. I don't have a strong opinion, but I think at least lowering it to one of those two would make a lot of sense to me.
Yeah. Okay. So you're pretty strongly positive. It's just interesting to see people, discussing it and so forth. Like it's been in the discussion for a long time now. Actually, again, it comes back to that question of time passing. It's easy to lose track of it, but I don't know when we start discussing 1 minute blocks on the show. It would have been at least in 2024, right? I think we even maybe mentioned it at Bliss 2024, so it might have been like that was still very early stuff maybe, but there's been a full 18 months of people discussing and chewing over these ideas, and I think it is rising in popularity. I think people are kind of like, because then if we obviously I'm in support of it, and I understand that some people are not, so I never really want to be on this show like pushing it too heavily, whatever. But the idea is at the moment there's no chips except for that one, as far as I know, which could potentially lock in at the end of 2026, right? So unless somebody comes up with something new, which then everybody will start discussing, then 2026 in November, that would be the chance to lock in 1 minute blocks, which then would go live in May 2027. But if we didn't, if it wasn't ready, people weren't confident in it, there was a problem found, who knows what happens. If nothing locks in the end of November 2026, which is fine, actually, it might be good.
Or something else,
it might be good to have a year where we did not have an upgrade, just to show that the community is not just going to do upgrades to do upgrades. Like they have to actually make sense and be vetted and have everyone on the page. But the problem is, if we did have that, which would be beneficial in one way, the downside would be that then there would be no lock-in until 2028.
Yes, only one opportunity a year with our current schedule.
That's right. And so then if you miss 1 year, like if we missed the 2026 lock-in, then there would be no live upgrade happening until May 2028, which is 2.5 years ago. And how different will the crypto industry be by that point? How different?
Difficult The world is moving fast. One thought on this, that the thing I would like to see a little more discussion on is because we mentioned avalanche and pre-consensus. I think this might be the only class of ideas if you consider some pre-consensus scheme in the future, because maybe we only start seriously considering such a scheme in 5 years or but we have to take into account the longer future as well, is if we want to do a pre-consensus scheme, would we still want faster blocks, or would it be fine? Would it kind of be neutral, or would it actually be a drawback? So I'm not actually sure about the answer, but I think if we want to think on the long term, we also have to think, what if it turns out that some pre-consensus ID does turn out to be nice? Would it interoperate well, and would it benefit, or would it be at odds, or would it just be neutral, that it's independent? So that's one area where I would like to see a little more discussion. But overall, I'm hopeful that we will actually see a shorter block duration.
My instinct is that faster blocks would be neutral or beneficial to like any kind of pre-consensus type of things. That's just my instinct. I have a hard time seeing how it would be a negative. Like, except for minor centralization, I have a hard time seeing how faster blocks is negative to anything, really, except for minor centralization. Like, because really, you can think of all transactions in cryptocurrency as just being a stream, and then blocks are just like the divisions. Yes. But really, it's just a stream. It's a stream of information, like a river. So, I mean, like Solana have done their 400 millisecond blocks, and obviously I think that's ridiculous. Yes. But the concept is, if hardware was 100 times better and you could get 400 millisecond confirmation without, speed of light, blah, blah, blah. Like, if that wasn't a problem, then that actually would be better if you could have, because you just want to have the most up-to-date information agreed by the most amount of people as fast as possible, as regularly as possible. That's basically what a blockchain is optimizing for. So to me, that's why 1 minute blocks like make a lot of sense. Increasing the check-ins, same way that you could have a beacon if you're on a mountain, and you could have it send a ping once every day for your 3-day camping trip. But if you're going to be rescued, it would be a lot better if it was once every 10 minutes or once every 1 minute. Like, in a stream of information, the more data points, the better. So given that there's not a substantial cost, except on potentially the mining decentralization and the headers, then you have to store headers, which is more of a burden for SPV. But
and reorgs might be more common, right? So reorgs
will be less common. That's the thing, because actually it's in the white paper in that section 8 or 9 or whatever it is at the end, is that if like one 10-minute block is easier to reorg than 10 1-minute blocks, right? Not only do you have a loading bar effect, but because the smaller blocks have been distributed around the network in that smaller amount of time, it's kind of like having 2 1-minute blocks is roughly equivalent to having 2 10-minute blocks, if you know what I'm saying, because each independent block propagates around the network. Do you know what I'm saying?
So I think I see what you're saying, but I just mean, if you a 2-block reorg sometimes happens, I think, but not too often in a year. But like, if this is just 2 minutes apart and there's some network issue or like some selfish mining or something, then I think like 2 or 3 block reorgs would be more common. Like, that's just, I think if we would see the data before and after.
Yes.
Like, I would be surprised if it would be the same, because there's just so many more blocks. Like, if anything, there's 10 times more blocks at a 1 minute block time. So I would expect 10 times more to block deep reorgs. But then moreover, I think because this time window is so short, and then if there's the Great Firewall of China or some other network topology or selfish mining or whatever, I think because the blocks come rather fast, you can also see more reorgs. So that's just, I'm not sure. I should talk to some of the researchers about this more in depth.
Yes, it was. Anyway, in any case, it's definitely something that needs a lot more research, and there's time for us to do that.
Yes, to discuss. Yeah, exactly. There's time to discuss in depth, and that will probably be an important topic in 2026. So
I think so. Yeah, definitely. And so that's just, it was just interesting to see it coming up, and some people were saying like, oh, some people are on board with it, some people are not on board with it, et cetera, et cetera. And it's like, yes, but that's the whole point. That's what we're doing here. Every upgrade has been at least a little bit controversial while the community is discussing it, and it's only over time that everybody slowly shifts into, seeing things in a new way or finding the best solution, etc. Okay, all right. We got a message to the community. You know how it goes. Your chance to tell the BCH community whatever they need to hear. Maybe a little retrospective on 2025, some predictions for 2026, whatever you're feeling.
Yes, so my message would mainly be for the new builders or the people who participate in Blaze, or anyone who recently has started building things and is now maybe reflecting the new year is close by and is maybe wondering like I want to encourage like more entrepreneurial ventures on Bitcoin Cash. So now, as we talked about, since March, I've been doing it myself with a company, and the whole process of it's been an adventure, I can tell you, including then the stuff with leading up to the launch. So it's, of course, a whole adventure with ups and downs. But I would encourage everyone to really take serious, if we believe in this long mission of Bitcoin Cash, that we think it's going to be such a big thing, such a profound innovation, such an important invention, that people still need to, like, if you think about all these tech companies that now exist and seem in hindsight, of course, someone invented something like this. Or if you say, of course, Coinbase, like an exchange became very big. Well, Brian Armstrong also had to take initiative at some point. So you always need, if Bitcoin Cash is to become very big, then some of us will do big things. Like they will invent companies, create organizations that will grow with to many people and impact a bunch more. So that would be my message: is to, if you believe in the end goal, or like where we're going, then think what opportunities, what gaps are there that you can help bring to realize this vision. And also in a way that's symbiotic, so where it can both benefit what you're building, the organization, as well as Bitcoin Cash and the movement, or like this vision as a whole. So I would say this is in part what we're trying to do with Bitcoin on Bitcoin Cash with ParityUSD. We see there is a need for the stable coins, and we prefer decentralized stable coins because they're more symbiotic. So, but if we think Bitcoin Cash is going to become big and possibly host a ton of volume on DeFi and stable coins, well, then we need the project and organizations and companies to actually build this infrastructure out, help realize the vision. And I think it's plausible that there's more Coinbases and Krakens and whatever, or like Uniswaps and Aves, but here in Bitcoin Cash, they're just still being created. So I would encourage entrepreneurial thinking for the next year, maybe some risk-taking, calculated risk-taking, and some positivity. And also it's really empowering to help build out the thing you believe in. Because if you're an investor, that's of course totally fine, but if you have your money in something, but you don't play an active role into helping realize it, whereas you can also be like manifesting this into reality by doing the hard work. And this can, of course, be in many forms, being engaged in many forms, but I think helping create what you want to see is the most empowering thing. So it's easy to be pessimistic or negative, maybe with a news cycle about the state of the world generally, but if you help build what you want to see different in the world, that's really empowering. So that's what kind of I try to do with my projects. See something that's missing. Oh, I wish this would exist. I wish this would be different. Well, let's just try and change it. Let's go for it, take the risk, be bold. Also try to be a bit of a visionary in the sense that we see the vision and let's try to actually get there, right? So why don't we have a solidity for Bitcoin Cash, for example? But there's so much room for people to do great things, and we're still small. And I hope to see this come to fruition. So that would be my message to the community, to take this positivity and entrepreneurial spirit to heart for the next year.
Amazing. Okay. Shout out to our FundMe contributors. We closed that next round, episodes 166 to 175. Majumali, this is a marathon. Molecular, the show we love. Cash Dragon, Bastion.com, fair and decentralized Twitter, at Cashdamps, BCH for the win, DGN and FurQ, Sick Rap Anthem, #1 token coming at ya, P2P Cash, smash the state, greater than 40% APY, https://nwb.cash, John Hall, best podcast ever, Brian Kanachi, and Anonymous. Shout out to our donators, of course, and our patrons, Ricky, Kyle, and HP. and our sponsors, General Protocols. Check out bchbull.com. You can find out more about the show at bitcoincashpodcast.com. Listen to episode 85 if you're new to all this, wondering what it's all about, and try out Selene Wallet at selene.cash or app.selene.cash, and you can literally just try it directly in your browser. Okay, final shout outs. Mathieu, where do people need to go to find this Parity blog and so forth?
Yeah, so they can go to ParityUSD.com. You can also find me on X. And for shout outs, I want to shout out the team organizing BCH Blaze. So thank you, Jeremy, and it was
Jonathan and Jerry. Yeah.
Yes, as well as Jonathan and Jerry, and everyone else who might be tangentially involved or participated. Like, I want to do a shout out to the concept as a whole, because I loved seeing it come to reality. This was an idea for so long, and then people made it happen. So thank you to the team for BCH Blaze.
Yes, excellent. Jet, do you have any shout outs?
I'll double up on the shout out to the Blaze participants. Like, it was nice to, like, I haven't done any BCH related programming in forever, and seeing the excitement, I was like, okay, I'll mess around on Cash Grip, like around a little bit. And then, yeah, like seeing everyone being so active in that, being it, like, just being like, oh, it's just an unlocking script, essentially. Like that, like, so much clicked for me in that moment. I was like, oh my God, all right. So yeah, it's nice to, like, I've been so burnt out, like, programming for my day job. It's nice to feel inspired to work on something again. So shout out to everyone that participated.
All right. And my shout out goes to Dragon Riders in the House of the Dragon. We had Caesar in the chatting away there. If anybody doesn't know, Caesar Gets Crypto. Look him up on YouTube. He's probably the biggest Bitcoin Cash content creator, actually. He's got 50,000 YouTube subs. He does a lot of technical analysis. He does all various different coins, but he really likes BCH, and he's also incredibly entertaining. So glad he was watching the show and enjoying it. He had a great video about conviction that I was watching last night, so check that out. He has his signature phrase, shout out to the Dragon Riders. So that's the BCH community right there. Okay, we're going to have one more podcast episode for the year. It will be the Christmas episode next weekend.
With predictions.
With predictions. Do you want to make any predictions, Mathieu?
Oof. That ParityUSD will be launched in early 2026.
Okay, all right. Anything else?
Yeah, that will get into the top 10, no doubt.
Okay, all right, good ones. But we'll check in. It will be next week with Ryan returning as he does every year, and Callisti as well. Plus, also Fiendish invited himself onto the show, basically, because he was keen to get in the mix. So we'll have definitely a banger roundtable.
Yeah, it will be a fun
episode. So check in for that next week, and then the show will be done for the year. Everybody can go have Christmas, New Year, and then the fresh assault on the banking system and changing the world in 2026. All right, you can all look forward to that. Thank you all for listening. Until next time.
Bye-bye.